Chapter 697. Chun Feifei's face was pale, and there was sweat on her forehead. She had always been in poor health. At this time, she had one hand on the wall and the other on her heart. She gasped, looking at the two people in front of her, wishing for a moment that she could faint. But her body, which had always been weak, showed no signs of fainting. She looked at Qin Yongchang and then at Zhang Haoze. His gaze was filled with accusation and accusation. You guys, Feifei? Qin Yongchang's expression changed, but only for a while. There were some things that his daughter would find out sooner or later. Dad, Chen panted and walked step by step towards the two people sitting. Is what Brother Hao said true? Even though Qin Yongchang was used to seeing great storms, he still felt a little guilty when he met his daughter's eyes. He didn't say anything. Qin Feifei turned to Zhang Haoze for an answer. Brother Hao, you wouldn't lie to me, would you? Tell me, is what you just said true? Her face was full of disbelief, but there was still the photo on Zhang Haoze's desk. Qin Feifei snatched it over and looked at the person in the photo. Needless to say, there was no need to ask anymore. He was a very young man who looked like he was still in university. He looked 50% similar to Qin Yongchang. It was just that he was younger and more flamboyant. Qin Feifei felt an unbearable pain in her heart. She thought she would faint again, but she didn't. She put her hands on the desk and stood firm. She stared at Zhang Haoze's face and stubbornly asked for an answer. Zhang Haoze's gaze fell on the photo in her hand. He looked up at Qin Feifei. This person wasn't Sure Mengwan. She was weak and sensitive. She could not bear the impending unveiling of the true Wood Eye. Haven't you already seen the photos? Without saying anything more, Qin Feifei staggered and almost fell. She looked at Qin Yongchang again. She suddenly threw the photo away and grabbed Qin Yongchang's shoulder. Dad, why are you doing this? Didn't you say so? You said I was your little princess. You said I was your only daughter. Didn't you say so? You said that everything in the Chun family will be mine in the future. Why? Why? She asked several questions in a row, insisting on an answer. Qin Yongchang was shaken by her, but he didn't look at her. After Qin Feifei finished shaking, she started to hit Qin Yongchang. How can you do this? How could you do this? Didn't you say that you loved my mother the most? Didn't you say that you would never marry again after she left? Then who was he? Why does he still exist? Dad, how can you face my mom like this? How could you let me down? Dad, how could you do this? Qin Feifei's health was not very good. She did not have much strength at all. As he fought and cried, he went limp. This time, she really fainted. Qin Yongchang's expression finally changed. He quickly picked up Qin Feifei. He just didn't know if it was because he was anxious or something else. When he got up, he loosened his grip and almost dropped Qin Feifei. Zhang Haoze had been watching coldly from the sidelines. Seeing this, he finally made a move. He stepped forward, picked up Qin Feifei, and walked out. Qin Yongchang followed behind him. His voice was sharp and cold. Zhang Haoze, you're too ruthless. You called Feifei here, right? You did it on purpose, didn't you? Zhang Haoze did not answer his question, but he did not deny it either. Qin Yongchang was furious. All right. You're ruthless. That was a beautiful move of yours. Uncle, don't be angry. Zhang Haoze carried Qin Feifei into the elevator. Looking at Qin Yongchang, who was flustered and exasperated, the corners of his lips curled up into a cold smile. According to your plan, it's only a matter of time. You had this plan for a long time. I was just helping you advance it. You, Qin Yongchang was speechless. Of course, he did not want to reveal it now. At the very least, he had to wait until they got married. At that time, Zhang Haoze would not ignore Qin Feifei. Don't think that you can get away with it. Let me tell you, Feifei is your responsibility. Zhang Haoze did not say anything. He carried Qin Feifei downstairs. The car was already waiting downstairs, just like before. Qin Yongchang looked at the group of people and swallowed the words he wanted to curse. In the end, he got into the car with a toothache. After the rescue, Qin Feifei finally woke up. After she woke up, she didn't want to see Qin Yongchang. She chased Qin Yongchang out, but let Zhang Haoze stay alone. The ward was very quiet. Qin Feifei had already smelled enough of the disinfectant since she was young. She was also tired of smelling it. But because her body was not healthy enough, she had to do it from time to time. She stared out of the window in a daze for a full 10 minutes. She didn't speak, and Jean Hauser didn't speak either. The game had already begun. The engagement had to be broken. In fact, the existence of this engagement was not approved by him. Since it was a mistake, of course he had to correct it. He had patience now. Chen Feifei looked at the setting sun outside. She finally retracted her gaze and faced Jean Hauser. When did you know? Jean Hauser didn't expect her to ask this. He didn't intend to lie to her. A long time ago. How long ago is a long time ago? When you were 18. At that time, Qin Yongchang had already started to let him enter the company and take over some matters. He knew that Qin Yongchang wanted to groom him as a son-in-law. But later, he suddenly discovered some differences. Especially after the Qin Corporation went through that danger. It was clearly caused by Qin Yongchang's distrust of him. Although he turned the tide later and reduced the losses, he also successfully let the Qin Corporation fight a beautiful turnaround. But the seed of doubt was planted in his heart. If Qin Yongchang really wanted him to treat Qin Feifei well, or marry Qin Feifei in the future, and take care of the Qin Corporation well, he shouldn't have such an attitude. Although he wanted to solve the Zhang family's matter at that time, he wasn't completely unprepared. After investigating for a while, he found out the reason from many clues. After knowing it, it was much simpler. On the surface, Qin Yongchang was indeed a good father and husband. But deep down, he had some traditions. He wanted his son to inherit the family business. His kindness to Qin Feifei was real. But his kindness came with conditions. And all of this was seen through by Jean Hauser. So early? Qin Feifei's eyes widened. After understanding the key point, she didn't care about how Jean Hauser found out. There was only one thought in her mind. Brother Hao, you really don't like me, do you? If you liked her a little, you wouldn't treat her like this. Jean Hauser was silent. He thought for a moment and told the truth. In my heart, you're my sister. Sister? Ha! Qin Feifei smiled bitterly, her eyes full of mockery. Yes, I'm your sister, so you don't have to feel sorry for me. You don't have to pity me. You asked me to your company, and let me hear such a cruel truth. Brother Hao, you're so cruel. Jean Hauser didn't deny it. Qin Feifei took a deep breath and calmed herself down. Why did you do this? Just to break off the engagement with me? Yes. He knew Shi Mingwan's heart not. If he wanted Qin Feifei to publicly break off the engagement in front of everyone in Lin City, he had to make Qin Feifei stand up. The current situation was that Shi Mingwan didn't believe his words. But if Qin Feifei stood up, Shi Mingwan would believe it. Qin Feifei's lips were pursed into a straight line. Her pale face and red eyes would make any man feel pity for her. Brother Hao, do you have a woman you like? Jean Hauser pursed his lips slightly and didn't deny it. Qin Feifei smiled. She seemed to have grown up in an instant and suddenly understood many things. You have someone you like, so you don't like me. The person you like might have misunderstood our relationship, so you want me to explain, right? She looked at Jean Hauser and knew that her guess was true. She smiled bitterly with a bitter expression. A girl who can make you care about her like this must be very beautiful, right? Yes. Jean Hauser nodded. In my heart, she's the most beautiful. The generous praise made Qin Feifei's face turn even paler. She bit her lip and her fingertips trembled. What do you want me to do? You'll announce the news of our breaking off the engagement. You can find any reason. I don't mind. In other words, Qin Feifei could be the reasonable one. She could make up any reason. She looked up at Jean Hauser. Aren't you afraid that if I say you're bad, the girl you like won't like you? No. Jean Hauser's voice was very soft. He thought of Shi Mingwan. No matter what I am, she will like me. Qin Feifei clenched her fists tightly to control herself from crying. Jean Hauser's gentle tone when he talked about that woman was something he had never used on her before. What if I don't agree? You will agree. Jean Hauser looked at her fixedly. Because you're a smart girl. Qin Feifei smiled. Brother Hao, do you know? This is the first time you've praised me. But I'm not happy at all. Jean Hauser was still silent. He did have sibling feelings for Qin Feifei. There was also gratitude. But that was all. Brother Hao, I will agree to you. But I also hope that you can agree to 2 conditions. Chen Feifei's expression seemed to have changed. She was much calmer than before. Don't worry, just two, and I won't make things difficult for you. Go ahead. Chen Feifei stared at her fingernails. In the shortest time possible, many thoughts had already flashed through her mind. Everything that happened today was a huge blow to her. If possible, she really hoped that she was still the happy little princess of the Chen family. But now, she knew that she couldn't be that carefree little princess anymore. First, I can't agree to break off the engagement with you immediately. Give me some time. John Hauser frowned. Chen Feifei looked at him. Brother Hao, if I stand up right now and say that I'll break off the engagement with you, it will be very bad for the company. I need to use your name. 3 months. 3 months was the limit of his patience. Chen Feifei looked at him deeply and finally nodded. Okay, 3 months. The second thing is that I haven't completely mastered the company yet. I also know that I won't be able to master it very quickly in a short period of time. I hope that you can help me, Brother Hao. It doesn't matter if it's you or if you find someone. I don't want the company to fall into the hands of unrelated people. When Chen Feifei said that she didn't want to do it, a flash of gloominess flashed across her face. It was true that the Chen Corporation belonged to Chen Yongchang, but without her mother's power and help, Chen Yongchang wouldn't have been able to develop the company to its current state. The company belonged to Chen Yongchang, and it was also her mother's. She didn't want outsiders to get involved in any way, but she couldn't do it alone. She needed help. Brother Hao, I know you can do it, right? Zhang Haoza looked at Chen Feifei. No matter what, they had grown up together. The change in Chen Feifei in front of him was unexpected, but it seemed to be reasonable. After all, after such a major change, it would really be abnormal if the person in front of him was still the same as before. I can. Thank you, Brother Hao. Chen Feifei smiled at him gratefully. There's one more thing. Chen Feifei seemed to realize that she had more than 3 conditions. Her expression was a little awkward, but Zhang Haoza didn't mind. Go ahead. Chen Feifei bit her lip. Her expression was conflicted, painful, hesitant, but in the end, it was firm. My father, he's getting old. I think he needs a good rest. Tell me, as his daughter, if I send him to a place with a good environment to spend the rest of his life, others won't be able to accuse me of being unfilial, right? When Zhang Haoza heard this, the corners of his lips curled up slightly. Look, this was Chen Feifei. No matter how weak she looked on the outside, she was actually a person with a clear goal inside. He was not surprised or shocked that she had such a thought. Of course, Zhang Haoza nodded. Feifei, you're so attentive. Others will only say that you're a good daughter and a very filial daughter. Chen Feifei seemed to heave a sigh of relief. Yes, I'm a good daughter. There was a hint of bitterness in her words, as well as something else. Zhang Haoza didn't care anymore. He stood up. It was getting late, and he still wanted to go back and have dinner with Mengwan. You decide the location. After you decide, I'll be responsible for sending Uncle to recuperate. Chen Feifei nodded. The moment Zhang Haoza turned around, she called out to him again. Brother Hao? Zhang Haoza turned around. Chen Feifei gritted her teeth as if she was going all out. Since my father's going to retire, someone has to take care of him. Someone has to take care of him, and my cheap little brother should be the most suitable candidate, right? She blinked her big eyes and looked at Zhang Haoza. At this moment, she didn't pretend at all. Zhang Haoza smiled. This was a rare smile that he showed in front of Chen Feifei. Of course, no one is more suitable than him. Chen Feifei seemed to be relieved. She looked up at Zhang Haoza and reached out her hand to him. Brother Hao, can you hug me? Just treat it as your final farewell. Zhang Haoza looked at her and gently put his arm around her shoulder. Just as he was about to step back, Chen Feifei suddenly tightened her arms. He felt her trembling. She buried her face in his chest. Brother Hao, I'm really jealous of her. After saying this, she let go of her hand and turned her face away. Brother Hao, you should go quickly. Otherwise, I'll regret it. Zhang Haoza looked at Chen Feifei. He had watched her grow up. Feifei, take care of yourself in the future. I believe that the Chen family will definitely flourish in your hands. Of course, Chen Feifei didn't turn her head, but her eyes were much more determined than when she first woke up. In the past, she only wanted to be in love, but now she knew. What love? It's all fake. If even someone close to you could betray you, what else was real? Only the benefits that were in his hands were real. Jean Hauser left the ward. As soon as he left, Chen Yongchang came over. What did Fei Fei say to you? How is she? Chen Yongchang looked in the direction of the ward. He wanted to get closer just now, but he was stopped by Jean Hauser's bodyguard. Jean Hauser glanced at Chen Yongchang. Thinking of Chen Fei Fei's request just now, he felt a little sympathy for Chen Yongchang. In some ways, Chen Fei Fei was the same kind of person as him. This was also the reason why he could never fall in love with Chen Fei Fei, even though he had been with Chen Fei Fei for more than 10 years. Uncle Chen, go and see Fei Fei. As for what I said to her, let her tell you herself. Jean Hauser wasn't in the mood to stay any longer. This time, when he returned to Lin City, the matter in front of him was his first priority. Now that it was resolved, his footsteps were a little lighter. After getting into the car, the driver didn't need to ask. He drove directly to Sherman Wan's apartment. When he entered, he smelled the aroma of food in the room. That familiar smell and familiar environment made Jean Hauser's expression relax for an instant. He changed his shoes and went straight into the kitchen. Sherman Wan had already cooked a dish. Just as she took it out and placed it on the cooking table, she felt her waist being hugged. She was shocked, and the pot in her hand almost fell to the ground. Jean Hauser reached out to help her hold it steady, then put it back on the stove. She turned around and glared at him. Don't you know how to make sound when you walk? You scare me to death, don't you know? Sorry. Jean Hauser pecked her lips. I scared you. Sherman Wan looked at him and felt that he seemed especially happy today. Are you happy that you scared me? No. Jean Hauser couldn't help but peck her lips again. Sherman Wan reached out and pressed against his chest when he wanted to deepen his kiss. That's enough. I still have to cook. Get out of the way. Don't disturb me. Jean Hauser didn't let go. Instead, he glanced at the cooking table. What else do you want to cook? Stir-fried beef, and this spicy and sour shredded potatoes. Sherman Wan glanced at him as she spoke. Her voice was very soft. I only know how to cook some home-cooked dishes. If you don't like it, you can eat outside. Jean Hauser glanced at her. It was rare to see her so cute. He reached out and rubbed the top of her hair. Go and rest. I'll do it. Sherman Wan was stunned for a moment. She watched as Jean Hauser took off his suit jacket, then unbuttoned the sleeves of his shirt and rolled them up twice. You know how to cook? Sherman Wan's voice was a little trembling. That wasn't possible, right? She had never seen him cook before, so she thought that he didn't know how to cook. Now that he looked like he was about to make a move, he stood there a little nervously, obviously worried. You don't believe me? Chapter 698. Sherman Wan looked at the handsome face in front of her and nodded without giving him any face. Jean Hauser narrowed his eyes when he heard her words. His gaze was too dangerous. Sherman Wan wanted to retreat, but it was already too late. Jean Hauser pulled her back into his arms. He lowered his head and kissed her until her hands and feet went soft. He pressed his forehead against hers, and his voice was a little hoarse. All right, let's go outside. I'll cook the remaining 2 dishes. Sherman Wan's legs were a little soft. She leaned against the wall and looked at Jean Hauser. She felt that he was a little different. He pushed her gently. Go. I'll call you later. Even if Sherman Wan didn't believe him, she could only go out now. She wiped the dining table and went into the kitchen again. She saw that Jean Hauser was really cooking. Are you that worried? Sherman Wan didn't dare to answer Jean Hauser's question anymore. She took the bowl and chopsticks and quickly left. She had just put it away. Coincidentally, she received a call. A client had some ideas about the design. Sherman Wan listened patiently and then wrote them down. After she had made an appointment with the client, she was done. When she turned around, Jean Hauser had already come out of the kitchen. He was holding 2 dishes in his hand. After putting them away, he looked at her. Come, let's eat. Sherman Wan looked at him suspiciously. She took a few steps forward and looked at the dishes on the table. She bought onions to stir-fry beef today. This dish looked simple, but it wasn't easy to make. Beef was a relatively difficult dish to make. If the heat wasn't right, the beef wouldn't be cooked and the taste wouldn't be good. If the heat was too hot, the beef would be overcooked and it wouldn't taste good. Shi Mingwan looked at the beef on the table. It looked pretty good in terms of appearance. She sat down and tasted it. She looked at Zhang Haoze in surprise. When did you learn to cook? She really couldn't tell at all. Zhang Haoze didn't answer her question. How does it taste? Not bad. It was indeed not bad. Shi Mingwan was more curious about how he learned it. Zhang Haoze didn't say anything. Instead, he scooped a bowl of soup for her and placed it in front of her. Shi Mingwan had done this action many times before. Now that Zhang Haoze was doing the same thing to her, her heart suddenly felt warm. Many thoughts flashed through her mind. Those uncertain thoughts that wanted to resist seemed to have faded again because of the changes caused by Zhang Haoze's return. She couldn't resist him when he was cold and indifferent, and now that he was gentle, she couldn't resist him. What to do? Shi Mingwan, are you going to sink into oblivion again? The taste of the food was to her liking, but she didn't really like it. She looked up at him and found that he was also looking at her. Her eyes were gentle, and there was a faint smile on her face. Her heart skipped another beat. She rarely saw Zhang Haoze smiling like this. Do you have any plans for tomorrow? Zhang Haoze's voice brought Shi Mingwan back to her senses. She glanced at him. Yes, there's a design that needs to be fixed tomorrow. She had to change the client's request tomorrow. Very urgent. It's all right. They were all regular customers, so there was no rush. Then why don't you free a day and let's go play? Shi Mingwan was stunned. Go play? Where are we going? You can think about where you want to go. Shi Mingwan lowered her head to eat. Was he asking her out on a date? This time, wasn't he afraid of meeting someone he knew again? It's not the weekend, so there shouldn't be many people. So you can think about it. Shi Mingwan originally wanted to say that they should go to the new amusement park that opened this year, but when she met Zhang Haoze's eyes, she said, let's go to Mount Qin. I haven't climbed a mountain in a long time. Zhang Haoze's expression didn't change. He nodded lightly. Okay, then let's climb Mount Qin. He looked like he didn't think of anything, but it was also as if Mount Qin was just an ordinary mountain to him. Shi Mingwan's mood was inexplicably conflicted. Did he forget? Or, at night, Shi Mingwan looked at Zhang Haoze, who was sleeping beside her. She felt that he had changed a lot. Can't sleep? Zhang Haoze didn't do anything to her today. He just hugged her to sleep. No. Shi Mingwan turned over and wanted to sleep with her back to him. Zhang Haoze turned her body around again. His hand was a little unruly on her body. Shi Mingwan instinctively resisted. Stop fooling around. Aren't we going to climb the mountain tomorrow? It's okay. Zhang Haoze kissed her neck. If you can't climb anymore, I'll carry you. Ew. In the end, Shi Mingwan couldn't win against Zhang Haoze, so she let him have his way once. However, Zhang Haoze knew when to stop. He only came once and let her go. She couldn't sleep at first, but after being tormented by him like this, she fell asleep very peacefully. Shi Mingwan sat in the car. When she arrived at the foot of Mount Qin, she was still a little dazed. Ever since she got separated from her dear brother here when she was 13, she had never come here again. To her, this was a sad place. She had always regretted it and was very upset. If she hadn't suggested coming here, her dear brother wouldn't have met those bad people, and she wouldn't have been separated from him. Shi Mingwan's emotions were complicated at this moment, but she looked at Zhang Haoze as if nothing had happened. Mount Qin had changed a lot compared to more than 10 years ago. A road had been built at the foot of the mountain, leading straight to the mountainside. This was originally a hilly area, so the mountain wouldn't be too high. Shi Mingwan sat in the car and watched the car go up the mountain. Finally, they stopped in the parking lot halfway up the mountain. When she got out of the car, she looked at the car in front of her and behind her. When she turned to face Zhang Haoze, she was a little conflicted. Can you not let them follow us? Okay. It was rare for Zhang Haoze to be so easy to talk to. Shi Mingwan heaved a sigh of relief. The scenery at the top of the mountain was quite good. Shi Mingwan didn't have many memories of Mount Qin. All her memories were of her dear brother being beaten, bleeding, and her loss. Now that her mood was different, she walked up and looked at the beautiful scenery on both sides. She was in the mood to appreciate it. She walked too fast and tripped over a small stone by the side of the road. Her body tilted, and Zhang Haoze quickly hugged her waist to stabilize her body. This scene was a little similar. She turned to look at him, and her eyes were misty. Jean Hausa looked at her snuggling in his arms and leaned over to kiss her. Shi Mingwan's face turned red for a moment, but Jean Hausa let go of her at this moment. "Let's go." Shi Mingwan lowered her head. She wanted to walk forward quickly, but Jean Hausa held her hand. She was stunned again and turned to look at him. However, he held her hand and continued walking forward. It was actually a little cold in Lin City during this season, especially when a mountain wind blew. However, Shi Mingwan's hand was held by Jean Hausa. His hand was very warm, very hot. That kind of heat made Shi Mingwan ignore the coldness in her hand. Other than the big rock that looked like a zither, there were a few other strange rocks in Mount Qin. Although it couldn't be compared to a famous mountain like Mount Huang, the scenery was quite good. The two of them went up the mountain together. Because it wasn't a weekend, there weren't many people. Shi Mingwan's playfulness finally came to an end after she saw the huge zither stone. She took out her phone to take a picture. The huge stone was like a huge zither because of the changes of time. Shi Mingwan's hand touched it, and she turned to look at Jean Hausa. She almost subconsciously said, "Dear brother, I'll climb up." Shi Mingwan didn't say anything else. More than 10 years ago, Mount Qin hadn't been developed yet. When it wasn't a tourist attraction, no one came here at all. She had once followed her dear brother and climbed up that huge zither. Now that she had grown up and there were tourists passing by the mountain from time to time, she was too embarrassed to climb up. Jean Hausa held her waist. "Do you want to go up? If you want to go up, I'll carry you up." The stone zither was huge, so it was naturally very tall. Shi Mingwan shook her head. Realizing that she had made a mistake just now, her interest was halved. "No, I'd better be a civilized tourist." Looking at Jean Hausa, she handed her phone to him. She didn't say anything, but Jean Hausa understood what she meant. After taking a few photos, Shi Mingwan was about to take her phone back when a couple came up. They were also here to play. When they saw Shi Mingwan and the girl, their eyes lit up. "Beauty, help us take a photo together." "Sure." Shi Mingwan didn't refuse. She took the other party's phone and took a photo of them. She took a few photos from all angles. When the girl took the phone, she thanked Shi Mingwan profusely. "Thank you, Beauty. Your boyfriend is also very handsome. Why don't I take a photo for you guys too?" Before Shi Mingwan could say anything, Jean Hausa had already handed the phone to the girl. The girl clicked her tongue. There was a hint of surprise in her eyes. The man was handsome, and the woman was beautiful. Such a model was also very pleasing to the eye. Shi Mingwan was still a little uncomfortable when Jean Hausa stood over. Jean Hausa put his arm around her shoulder. They looked at the camera together. Shi Mingwan subconsciously curled the corners of her lips. At this moment, the hand on her shoulder suddenly exerted a little force. She looked at Jean Hausa in confusion. At this moment, he leaned over and kissed her on the lips. Shi Mingwan's eyes widened, but she heard the sound of the camera. The scene froze there. Shi Mingwan was a little embarrassed. After the couple left, she quickly left Jean Hausa's side. Other than this huge rock that looked like a zither, there were also some other rocks of different shapes on Mount Qin. Shi Mingwan didn't have a deep memory of the time. She came here when she was young. Her mood was different when she revisited this old place. She turned to look at Jean Hausa, and he was also looking at her. She wanted to ask him a few times if he was her dear brother, but in the end, there was only silence. Forget it, why ask again? Even if she asked, Jean Hausa wouldn't admit it. Opening her heart, Shi Mingwan let herself play happily. As for the rest of the things, for now, it was almost noon when they came down from Mount Qin. The two of them got into the car. Shi Mingwan was tired. She stayed in the office every day, and this trip to the mountain was a little tiring. On the other hand, Jean Hausa, his expression didn't change, and he was calm and composed. It didn't affect him at all. Compared to other people, the difference was really big. When the car passed by the foot of the mountain, Shi Mingwan looked outside. That was the place where she had lost contact with her dear brother. She turned to look at Jean Hausa, but he didn't react at all. Was he really her dear brother? She couldn't forget those memories in time for so many years, but Jean Hausa seemed to have completely forgotten. Did he have some accident and lose his memory, or was there some inside story that she didn't know? She thought of Jean House's current status. It was already different from a past. Perhaps that experience of being a hooligan wasn't what he wanted. Was that why he avoided talking about it? Was that so? Are you hungry? What do you want to eat for lunch? Jean House's face enlarged in front of her. Shermangwan realized that she was actually staring at Jean House and felt a little embarrassed. Whatever. Jean House glanced at her and wasn't annoyed. The car finally stopped at a very famous Western restaurant in the center of Lin City. Shermangwan followed Jean House into the door. Before the two of them could sit down, someone who knew Jean House came over. When the other party saw Jean House, he came over to greet him. When Jean House was exchanging pleasantries with the other party's gaze swept over Shermangwan. Shermangwan felt a little uncomfortable and wanted to pull her hand back, but she felt Jean House put his arm around her shoulder and introduced her very calmly. "This is my girlfriend." She was stunned on the spot. Did Jean House know what he was talking about? She didn't even notice that person's ambiguous gaze. After all, at this stage, everyone who knew Jean House knew that he had a fiancée. Now, he had another girlfriend. However, looking at Jean House's gaze, that person wouldn't look for trouble. He left after saying hello. After that person left, Shermangwan stood there and looked at Jean House. "Do you know what you're talking about? You're my girlfriend to begin with." Jean House looked at her. "I promised you." She wanted a status, so he would give her a status. Shermangwan sat there and looked at Jean House, who was completely different from her memories. She couldn't help but feel her heartbeat quicken. Once again, she was moved by the heart in front of her. "Wan." Jean House held her hand. With a focused expression, he said, "Come back to Qing City with me." At this moment, Shermangwan couldn't say anything to reject him. She just stared at Jean House in a daze. She actually had an uncontrollable urge in her heart. She really wanted to throw everything aside and go with him. In the next few days, Jean House and Shermangwan seemed to have returned to that period of time. He was very busy. After all, he had to deal with a lot of work this time and then prepare to go to Qing City. But every night, he would definitely have dinner with her. Shermangwan's apartment was very small. Jean House suggested that she change places, but she didn't want to. She wasn't sure how long Jean House could maintain his current appearance. More importantly, if he wanted to leave one day. What was she going to do? A week passed, and Jean House seemed to be even busier. Shermangwan knew that he was busy, so she didn't plan to disturb him. She also took this opportunity to negotiate with the two OEM factories. Song-Seeking Studio could also be considered to have taken a big step forward. Shermangwan was in a good mood. Thinking about how her relationship with Jean House was slowly getting better during this period of time, she suddenly had a sudden impulse and wanted to celebrate with Jean House. Chun Feifei looked at Jean House in front of her. After not seeing him for a week, the person in front of her seemed to have changed again. There was still a cold look in his eyes, but there was a hint of gentleness. Needless to say, this must be the power of love. She was really jealous of the woman who had Jean House's heart. However, she knew better than anyone what the most important thing was right now. "Brother Hao, I'm sorry. It seems that I'll have to trouble you tomorrow." Chun Feifei thought that she was a very filial daughter. Therefore, she spent a lot of effort on Chun Yongchang's retirement home. In the end, she finally chose a small town in Canada. The environment was good, and the people were simple. Everything could be said to be perfect. The only imperfection now was that Chun Yongchang didn't want to go. These few days, because of some of her and Jean House's actions, he had been losing his temper at home. "You're welcome. I will naturally do what I promised you." It was very simple to bring Chun Yongchang onto the plane. It wasn't too difficult for Chun Yongchang to stay abroad for the rest of his life. There was a hint of mockery in Chun Feifei's eyes. "Do you know? My dad has been scolding me at home for the past few days." She had been in the company for the past few months, so she had some understanding of the company. It would still take time for her to completely snatch the company back into her hands. Chun Yongchang wanted to resist, but with Jean House around, he was greatly suppressed. These few days, Chun Yongchang had been scolding people at home. Of course, he wasn't only scolding Chun Feifei, but also Jean House. He said that I have no conscience and that you're an ingrate. I think it's really funny. He was the one who said that everything in the Chun family would be mine in the future. Why is he so angry now that I just got it in advance? Jean Hausa couldn't answer her question. Chun Feifei smiled. Forget it. Let's not talk about him. Brother Hao, let's have lunch together. Before Jean Hausa rejected her, Chun Feifei raised her index finger. Don't be in a hurry to reject me. That old fox from Deshang Corporation has arranged to meet at noon today. You know that he has always been lustful. I'm afraid I'll suffer a loss in his hands. Anyway, you've helped me so much. I think you don't mind going to a meal with me, right? She leaned forward a little. If I can settle this deal with Deshang ahead of time, I can also establish my authority in the company ahead of time. Maybe I'll come out earlier to break off the engagement. Jean Hausa was speechless, but that old fox, Deshang, did not have a good reputation. However, he had some connections behind him. There were benefits to cooperating with him, but this person had a bad reputation. Let's go. Even if Chun Feifei didn't say it, he would still help with these small favors. Thank you, Brother Hao. You're the best. Chun Feifei smiled innocently, looking the same as many years ago. Only they themselves knew that Chun Feifei's smile was completely different. After going downstairs, before Chun Feifei got into the car, she hooked her arm around Jean Hausa's. Brother Hao, I've wronged you. Act as a couple with me. Don't worry. Just this once. I promise I won't trouble you next time. When she gained a foothold in the Chun Corporation, she really didn't need Jean Hausa to appear. She just needed to put on a show. Jean Hausa glanced at her. At this point, he seemed to be a little helpless. I didn't say I wouldn't help you. Thank you very much. The two of them got into the car together and headed to the place where Chun Feifei had agreed to meet. Jean Hausa instructed someone to drive. What he didn't expect was that Shi Mengwan, who was across the street and wanted to explain things to Jean Hausa, happened to see the scene of Jean Hausa and Chun Feifei leaving arm in arm when she saw him come out. With a cold face, she watched Jean Hausa bring Chun Feifei into the car with a doting expression. She also saw Chun Feifei's overly bright smile. That scene looked like a loving and affectionate couple. Shi Mengwan suddenly felt that all the words of love she had heard yesterday had turned into a joke. She sat in the car and gripped the steering wheel tightly. There was no trace of emotion in her eyes. Shi Mengwan watched as the shocking motorcade left the building of Jean Hausa's company. She also got into the car and started the car to leave. However, this time, she wasn't going back to the studio. Instead, she was going home. That day, not only did Jean Hausa accompany Chun Feifei to complete the Deshang project, he also made a trip to the Chun Corporation. Appearing with Chun Feifei could be considered as establishing his prestige. After so many days in the Chun Corporation, his prestige wasn't much inferior to Qin Yongchang's. Many people had always regarded him as the future head of the Chun Corporation. Now that Qin Yongchang said that he was not feeling well and needed to recuperate, the person who took over was Chun Feifei. Everyone was a little worried, but when they saw Jean Hausa, there was nothing to worry about. After all, with Jean Hausa around, the Qin Corporation would only get better and better. Chun Feifei looked at the way those people looked at Jean Hausa and clicked her tongue. Big Brother Hao, your existence is like a great Buddha. With you around, these people won't dare to look down on me. Thank you for supporting me. You're welcome. Jean Hausa was expressionless. I'm just returning your favor. Tisk, you've returned the favor of saving my life just like that. Why do I feel like I'm at a loss? Chun Feifei couldn't be bothered to hide herself in front of Jean Hausa now. Jean Hausa glanced at her. Or, would you like Uncle to stay? No need. Chun Feifei didn't dare to tease him anymore. All right, I promise you, we're even. Jean Hausa entered her office and looked at some of the recent cases of the Chun Corporation. He then roughly told Chun Feifei some things to pay attention to. After all, Chun Feifei studied business, so she took over these things very quickly. He believed that even if he returned to Qing City in 2 days, it wouldn't affect him much. He spent the entire afternoon at the Chun Corporation. He rejected Chun Feifei's suggestion to have dinner together. He was going to have dinner with Shi Mengwan. You're so anxious to see your sweetheart. I really want to meet her. Jean Hausa glanced at her and didn't respond. Before everything was completely stable, he didn't want Shi Mingwan to appear in front of Qin Feifei. After leaving the Qin Corporation, he went straight back to Shi Mingwan's apartment, but he found that she wasn't at home. Zhang Haoze was stunned for a moment. At this time, she should have already returned from the studio. Looking at the empty house, he took out his phone and made a call. Shi Mingwan didn't pick up his call. He called again, but no one picked up. Later, Shi Mingwan's phone was turned off. Holding his phone, he looked at the living room in front of him in a daze. What was Shi Mingwan doing? 10 minutes later, Zhang Haoze's men brought news. Shi Mingwan had gone home. Go home? Why was she going home at this time? Chapter 699. When Shi Mingwan arrived home, it was almost evening. Father Shi went to the field to pick vegetables. Mother Shi was cooking in the kitchen. Shi Mingru, who was already in the second year of middle school, was doing her homework in her room when she heard the sound of the car and ran out. Sister, why are you back? It wasn't the new year, so Shi Mingwan rarely went home. It's nothing. I missed you guys. Shi Mingwan smiled. Although she came back in a hurry, she still had gifts. She took out a big box from the back seat of the car and handed it to Shi Mingru. Didn't you say that the tablet had a black screen last time? I bought you a new one. Wow, sister, you're so nice. Moo. Shi Mingru jumped up on her tiptoes and kissed Shi Mingwan. You just spoil her. Mother Shi heard the sound and came out of the kitchen. A student girl has already used up 2 tablets. No one else uses tablets. Not only does she have a computer, but she also has a tablet and a phone. Don't spoil her. Don't worry. I won't spoil her. Shi Mingwan rubbed her sister's hair. Mom, you're watching over her. Are you spoiling her just because she bought some electronic products? You. Mother Shi wanted to say something else, but Shi Mingwan took out a bigger box from behind. Mom, this is for you. Last time, I heard from Qing saying that this physical therapy device sold very well in their hospital. It's also very useful. Your shoulder always hurts. Try this. Why waste this money? How painful can it be? Just bear with it and it'll pass. Mom, don't worry about money. Shi Mingwan moved the other gifts out of the car. Our studio's business has been very good recently. It's quite busy. Don't worry, your daughter can make money. You're still back if you're busy. Mother Shi took the gifts. Didn't you just come back for the Mid-Autumn Festival? You don't have to come back anymore. You're still running back and forth. Mom, are you chasing me away? Shi Mingwan pretended to get into the car as she spoke. All right, I've finished delivering the things. I'm leaving. You child. Mother Shi patted her on the body. Let's go. I'll ask your dad to buy 2 more vegetables. We'll have more food tonight. Shi Mingwan reached out and hugged Mother Shi. Because she saw Zhang Haoze and Qin Feifei unhappy together, no matter how unhappy they were along the way, she calmed down. She shouldn't be surprised, nor should she be surprised. Zhang Haoze lied to her time and time again, but she was stupid and believed him time and time again. This time, there really wouldn't be a second time. She would never trust him again. Looking at the setting sun, Shi Mingwan made up her mind. When Father Shi came back, he was very happy to see Shi Mingwan. The family ate happily. Shi Mingwan sat and chatted with her parents for a while. Then, she went to check on Shi Mingru's homework. Actually, there was nothing much to check. Shi Mingru's results were pretty good, and she had always been among the best. She even planned to go to university in Lin City in the future so that she could have a companion. After taking a shower, Shi Mingwan returned to her room, but she couldn't fall asleep. She was in a bad mood. He glanced at his phone. There were a few missed calls. Later, she turned off her phone, but Zhang Haoze still called her. She didn't understand why he would call her. He already had Qin Feifei. Why did he have to provoke him? She had made up her mind to give up many times, but every time, she would waver under Zhang Haoze's domineering and pestering. Every time she made an oath, it would be broken by Zhang Haoze in the end. It was really enough. This time, she really wouldn't believe him again. She wouldn't believe a single word he said anymore. Shi Mingwan thought this in her heart when she blocked Zhang Haoze's number. Shi Mingwan blocked Zhang Haoze's number, but she couldn't let herself fall asleep smoothly. Just as she was about to fall asleep, her phone rang. The ringing sound of the phone that kept disturbing her dreams forced Shi Mingwan to open her eyes. She glanced at the screen. She didn't recognize the number. She pressed it. After a while, her phone rang again. She pressed it again. After a while, it rang again. She pressed it again. After the fifth time, Shermangwan finally couldn't help but pick up the phone. Didn't your mother tell you that it's very impolite to call someone in the middle of the night? No. My mother passed away a long time ago. The voice on the other end instantly woke Shermangwan up. She looked at the phone in her palm. It was an unfamiliar number, but the voice was indeed John House's. She closed her eyes and was about to hang up. I'm at your door. John House's next sentence made her stop. Right now, I'm at your door. It's not the apartment in Lin City. It's your hometown. Qingfeng Town. Shermangwan blinked. For a moment, she thought she was hallucinating. John House, are you crazy? Come out. I don't want to. Shermangwan's voice was full of anger. John House, that's enough. Let me tell you, we're done. There's no future, and there's no breakup. Anyway, we've never been on good terms. As she spoke, she hung up the phone. Afraid that John House would call again, she swiped her hand and prepared to turn off her phone. At this moment, a message popped up. Perhaps you wanted to visit your parents? Crazy. Shermangwan looked at the message and stopped turning off her phone. Was John House crazy? He wanted to visit her parents at this time? Did he think the matter wasn't big enough? While she was angry, the phone on the other end rang again. Looking at the flashing number, Shermangwan picked it up gloomily. John House, that's enough. What do you want? We didn't take any precautions yesterday. You might be pregnant. Do you want me to tell your parents about this? Are you crazy? Shermangwan's face was red. Half of it was angry, and the other half was shy. John House still remembered to take precautions. But the last time yesterday, there weren't enough condoms. She wanted to stop it, but it was too late. She could only be glad that it was a safe period. But Shermangwan didn't believe in a safe period even once. One had to know that Su Qing-sang was a doctor in the obstetrics and gynecology department. She had told her a lot about all kinds of accidental pregnancies in their hospital. Many of them thought that it was a safe period. But in Su Qing-sang's words, a safe period wasn't safe either. It still depended on the person. Now, Jean House, that bastard, actually used this to threaten her? How could she dare to let him talk nonsense in front of her parents? It wasn't like she didn't want to live anymore. Jean House, don't go too far. 5 minutes. Jean House said these 3 words and hung up the phone. Shermangwan was very angry. She only felt that her stomach was hurting now. She looked out of the window. The sky was gloomy, and it seemed like it was going to rain. She gritted her teeth, got up helplessly, put on her coat, and went downstairs. It was almost midnight, and Father Sher and Mother Sher were both asleep. Shermangru's room was at the other end of the corridor, while Mother Sher and the others' rooms were downstairs. This kind of self-built house usually had a large hall outside. Shermangwan could only be glad that she didn't have to be afraid of waking her parents up. Before leaving, she didn't know if it was because of some strange coincidence or something else, but she picked up her bag and car keys. When she went outside, the cold wind that hit her face made her stagger. After stabilizing her body, she saw a row of luxury cars lining up on the side of the road, diagonally opposite the Sher family's courtyard. If anyone didn't wake up now and saw so many luxury cars in such a small town, they would probably be shocked. Shermangwan closed her eyes and had no choice but to get into the car in the middle. It was much warmer inside the car than outside. Shermangwan didn't plan to stay for long. It was warm inside the car, and the lights above her head made her feel a little warm. But that was all. Jean House, what exactly do you want? She didn't come out because she thought that she was afraid of him or anything. She was just worried about her parents' thoughts and feelings. If Jean House thought that she was afraid of him, then he was really wrong. To her surprise, Jean House didn't seem to be angry. His tone was still gentle. Why didn't you tell me when you went home? I called you and you didn't answer. I was very worried about you. Ignoring the concern in his words, Shermangwan glared at the person in front of her. Tell you? Why should I tell you? Who are you to me? Where I go and what I do doesn't seem to have anything to do with you, right? Her words today were very blunt, and her attitude was very wrong. Jean House wasn't sure what happened to Shermangwan. They had been getting along well these few days. so he thought that her attitude would soften. If I remember correctly, I seem to be your boyfriend, right? So now she was saying that what she did had nothing to do with him? Could it really have nothing to do with him? Really? Then let's break up now. Anyway, he couldn't be her boyfriend alone, so she didn't want him. Jean Hausen narrowed his eyes slightly. He finally realized that something was wrong. What happened? She rushed home. Could it be that her grandmother was forcing her to marry again, or asking her to give in and agree to some conditions? What happened? Shermaine Wan found it funny. This person actually had the nerve to ask her what happened? Shouldn't he be the one who should be telling this sentence the most? She wanted to stab him a few times, but Shermaine Wan held it in. They had talked too much about Chen Fei. Her questions had never been answered positively. The following answers. No, there were. But behind those answers, she would always lose some of herself. She catered to him and accepted everything he gave her. Now, she didn't want it anymore. What could happen to me? I'm just tired of it. He wasn't the only one who would play two-timing outside. If she was given a chance, she would prove it to him. She, Shermaine Wan, didn't need to hang herself on him. Jean Hausen narrowed his eyes and looked at Shermaine Wan's expression seriously. He was surprised to find that what she said was actually true. Tired of it? He narrowed his eyes and listened to Shermaine Wan's rather heartless words. He tightened his grip on her hand, and his gaze returned to its previous gloominess. Do you know what you're talking about? Of course I know. Shermaine Wan retracted her hand and took a step back. Jean Hausen, please stay away from me. We're not suitable. She reached out to pull the car door, but found that she couldn't open it at all. At the same time, Jean Hausen actually asked someone to start the car. Shermaine Wan gritted her teeth and turned to face Jean Hausen. Jean Hausen, that's enough. Stop the car. Do you hear me? She was very angry. She reached out to pull the car door, but the car door didn't move at all. Shermaine Wan was furious. She raised her foot and kicked the car door. Unfortunately, she was thin and weak, so she couldn't make the car door move at all. Shermaine Wan's sharp temper rose to her head at this moment. She used both her feet to kick the car door, not caring if she would hurt her feet. Jean Hausen hugged her waist and gestured for the driver to stop the car. The moment the car stopped, Shermaine Wan bit down on his shoulder. In the late autumn weather, she wore a lot of clothes. To Jean Hausen, this strength was no different from scratching an itch. He let her bite until she didn't have the strength to bite anymore. He lifted her body and lifted it up. Drive! Jean Hausen. Shermaine Wan was angry. He didn't listen to her at all, did he? Before the car started, Jean Hausen looked at her and took away the bag in her hand. He took out the car keys from inside. He gave an order, and soon, someone came over and took the car keys. Shermaine Wan was angry in her heart. Jean Hausen, don't be too shameless. If you really talk nonsense in front of my parents, at most, we'll just fight to the death. You could try. You came out so late and brought your bag. Didn't you just want to leave? Shermaine Wan was extremely angry. Of course, she wanted to leave. She would rather go back to Lin City and quarrel with Jean Hausen slowly than let Mother Sure see Jean Hausen appear. It wasn't easy for Mother Sure to calm down during this period of time. She no longer insisted on introducing her to a blind date. If she saw Jean Hausen appear again, it was hard to say if Mother Sure would find someone to go on a blind date with her again. What are you angry about? Jean Hausen really didn't understand. They had been fine during this period of time. She had also started to accept him again. What was she doing today? Shermaine Wan didn't want to talk to him. It was already very late at this time. She turned around and leaned against the back of the chair with her back facing Jean Hausen. She closed her eyes. She used this action to silently resist. She wouldn't answer his question, much less be with him. Jean Hausen looked at her face. It was rare that he didn't force her to speak like he did in the past. He just stared at Shermaine Wan's face. Shermaine Wan felt Jean Hausen's gaze and closed her eyes even more tightly. However, at first, she pretended to be asleep, but later on, she really fell asleep. No matter what, she was someone who had been working all day and driving for half a day. In a daze, she really fell asleep. When Shermaine Wan woke up, she was still woken up by the ringing of her phone. On the other end of the phone, Mother Sure was full of anxiety. Wan, where did you go? Why is your car gone? And where are you? Where did you drive to so early in the morning? Where could she drive to so early in the morning? Sure, Mingwan originally wanted to deny it, but she suddenly remembered John House's appearance yesterday. She was shocked and quickly woke up. She explained to Mother Sure that something happened at the factory last night, so she returned to Lin City overnight. Although Mother Sure believed this excuse, she scolded her again. She felt that she didn't care about her health and that staying up late to drive was very tiring. But now that she was sure that she was fine, Mother Sure said a few more words to her and hung up. Sure Mingwan hung up the phone and suddenly realized something. The environment in front of her wasn't in her apartment in Lin City. Chapter 700. The unfamiliar environment in front of her wasn't her apartment. Sure Mingwan felt a headache coming on. She sat up and looked at the environment in front of her. This room was very big. It was almost as big as her small apartment. Other than the bed, there was also a sofa and an armchair on the other side. Near the balcony, there were elegant and simple beige curtains. The entire style was European palace style, but it didn't make people feel comfortable. She got out of bed and found that it wasn't her shoes by the bed, but a pair of extremely comfortable indoor slippers. She put on them and walked towards the balcony. When she opened the curtains, she was almost shocked. The huge man-made lake was in front of her. The green in front of her was like a park, but it looked much more elegant than a park. She looked to the side and saw that it was all villa areas. She frowned. She was friends with Su Qing-sang, and she would sometimes attend some clients' dinner parties. She had a certain understanding of some famous villa areas in Lin City. However, the neighborhood in front of her was very unfamiliar to her. She stood for a while and remembered that the last person she saw was Jean Hauser. She was about to call Jean Hauser. She didn't know that Jean Hauser was standing at the door. Where is this? Why am I here? How did he bring her here? No, it should be said, how did she appear here without realizing it? My house. Jean Hauser walked towards her. The morning light shone in from the direction of the balcony. The person in front of her was tall and handsome. The next sentence almost made Sure Mingwan's legs go limp. This is my home in Qing City. Sure Mingwan staggered and almost couldn't stand. Jean Hauser quickly supported her at this moment. For Sure Mingwan, who had just woken up, she didn't have much energy to resist him. Her lips moved, and a gloomy look flashed across her eyes. You who agreed to you? Who agreed to you that I was coming to Qing City? Jean Hauser looked at the anger on her face. He didn't seem to understand why she was so angry. I told you that I wanted to bring you to Qing City. Sure Mingwan was so angry that she almost laughed. You said you wanted me to come, so I came. She said this and walked past Jean Hauser to walk out. Jean Hauser grabbed her arm. Are you angry? Why? Why? Do you think I can't be angry? Do you think I have no reason to be angry at you for taking me to another city or another place without my consent? Jean Hauser was stunned for a moment. Seeing the anger on Sure Mingwan's face, he nodded. I'm sorry. It's my fault I didn't ask for your permission. But I still have things to deal with here, and I want to be with you, so I used the wrong method. He lowered his stance a little. Sure Mingwan wasn't used to seeing Jean Hauser like this. In the past, she would have wanted to question him, but today, she was too lazy to even do so. I accept your apology, so can I leave now? Jean Hauser didn't expect Sure Mingwan to have such a reaction. Sure Mingwan had already walked outside. When she reached the door, he tried to run after her. Sure Mingwan suddenly stopped in her tracks and turned back. Where's my bag? And my car? It's downstairs. I've asked someone to park the car in front of your apartment. After hearing this, Sure Mingwan didn't ask any more questions. She turned around and continued to walk out. Jean Hauser followed behind her. Sure Mingwan took a few steps and realized that there was no way out. She turned around and looked at Jean Hauser, who was following behind her. She didn't know if it was her imagination, but she saw a faint smile in his eyes. The stairs are this way, Jean Hauser explained very kindly. Sure Mingwan snorted and walked past him in the opposite direction. Her angry look made Jean Hauser decide not to tell her that the place where she had walked to the end of the road was actually the elevator. As long as she pressed the button on the side, the elevator would come up. Instead, he chose to follow behind her. Sure Mingwan was wearing cotton slippers, so she naturally couldn't walk fast. She didn't know if the air conditioner was turned on, but the warm wind in this season made her feel a little hot. The stairs were indeed on the other side. After going downstairs, she wasn't in the mood to appreciate the decorations here. She looked around and immediately saw her bag on the sofa. She went forward to pick it up and continued walking outside. After taking 2 steps, she realized that the shoes on her feet were wrong. She had no choice but to turn around and look at John Hauser. "Where are my shoes?" "In the shoe cabinet at the entrance," John Hauser said. Shi Mengwan nodded and went forward to open the shoe cabinet. Sure enough, she found her shoes and put them on. She reached out and opened the door. The moment the door opened, the cold wind that blew into her face made Shi Mengwan quickly and instinctively close the door. She turned around and looked at John Hauser. Qing City is in the north. She always heard him say that he wanted her to accompany him back to Qing City, but she really hadn't paid attention to where Qing City was. She looked at her body. Before she went out yesterday, she had taken a light woolen coat, but now that she had just woken up, she didn't know where the coat was. She was only wearing a thin sweater, so she was really cold now. She glared at Jean Hauser and gritted her teeth for some reason. "Mr. Jean, can I ask how I got in yesterday?" Jean Hauser looked at the anger on her face and didn't seem to mind. "I carried you in. You were sleeping a little soundly. When I got out of the car, I covered you with a blanket." Of course, he wouldn't say that he got into the car directly after getting off the plane. There was a heater in the car, and they came directly from the underground garage, so it was normal for her not to feel cold. Shi Mengwan nodded. Her expression was very conflicted and a little angry. "Good, very good. Great." In such a situation, if she didn't want to get sick from the cold, she had to ask John Hauser. "You don't have to leave in a hurry. There are many fun places in Qing City. You can play for 2 days before you leave." Is this considered a forced purchase? Shi Mengwan was angry. John Hauser put his arm around her waist. "This is a sincere invitation." Shi Mengwan raised her foot and was about to step on the back of his foot. However, she was wearing cotton slippers, so no matter how hard she tried, she didn't cause any harm to John Hauser's foot. She was angry and turned around, not wanting to talk to him. However, her stomach made a very uncooperative sound, and Shi Mengwan's face instantly turned red. "Let's go. Let's eat." John Hauser brought her in the direction of the dining room. Previously, Shi Mengwan was so focused on leaving that she didn't notice at all. Only now did she realize that there was someone else in the house. After entering the dining room, she realized that not only was the room big, but the dining room was also big. The long white dining table had a lot of exquisite food placed in the middle. It was placed on an exquisite plate. John Hauser held Shi Mengwan's hand and sat down at the other end of the dining table. "There are some good places of interest in Qing City. After dinner, didn't you say that you have a lot of work to deal with?" Shi Mengwan's expression was a little cold. "Since that's the case, then you should go deal with your work first." John Hauser wasn't angry, even though she had brushed him off. He was about to explain that he could spare a day when Tang Hua rushed in from outside. When he saw that Shi Mengwan was also there, he swallowed back the words he was about to say. "President John, Miss Shi." Shi Mengwan knew Tang Hua. This person had been with John Hauser for an unknown period of time. She nodded as a greeting and watched John Hauser get up. "You eat first. I have something to do here. I'll take you out to play in the afternoon." Shi Mengwan didn't mind when she could go out at all. Now, she was so happy that she couldn't see John Hauser. John Hauser was busy until it was almost evening before he finished. Shi Mengwan didn't mind. She was thinking about some questions. For example, how could she leave this place, and how could she have a showdown with John Hauser? Before she could think clearly, John Hauser had already finished his work. The sky gradually darkened. When John Hauser appeared in front of Shi Mengwan again, Shi Mengwan had just finished scrolling through her WeChat moments. Looking at the pair of long legs in front of her, she raised her head. John Hauser was looking at him. "Come on, let's go out to eat." "Go out to eat?" Shi Mengwan didn't want to move. "It's very cold outside." Actually, it wasn't particularly cold. It wasn't the coldest time in Qing City yet. It was just that Shi Mengwan had just flown over from the south, so she felt that it was especially cold here. John Hauser held her hand, and only then did she realize that there was a fitting room on the other side of the room. Pulling open the door of one of the cabinets, he saw that it was filled with women's clothing. Everything was new, and the tags were still there. There were clothes for all seasons of the year. At the bottom, there were different kinds of shoes. Seeing so many women's clothes, Shi Mengwan turned her head to look at him. Her slightly furrowed brows carried some complicated emotions. Although these clothes were all her measurements, they were all standard sizes. "So, aren't we going out to eat? Take a coat and let's go." Shi Mengwan couldn't muster up much interest, but Zhang Haoze seemed to be in a good mood. Seeing that she didn't make a move, he took the initiative to pick out a khaki-colored woolen coat and handed it to her. "This one's not bad." Although Shi Mengwan wasn't very satisfied, she still put on the clothes. She found a pair of boots and put them on. Shi Mengwan followed Zhang Haoze out of the door. After getting into the car, Shi Mengwan wasn't in a good mood. Zhang Haoze, on the other hand, looked very relaxed. He reached out to hold her hand. "Sorry, Tang Hua had something to talk to me about. I forgot the time and didn't accompany you. Are you angry?" Shi Mengwan wasn't angry. She pulled back her hand, and Zhang Haoze went to hold her hand again. She avoided him again. This time, she accidentally touched a button and the car window rolled down. The cold wind blew, and Shi Mengwan closed the car window again. The car happened to make a turn at this time, so she didn't notice that in a villa next to her, Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao had just gotten out of the car. Su Qingsang happened to see her sitting in the car window and thought that her eyes were playing tricks on her. Zhang Haoze's car circled around the city of Qing City. He seemed to be in a good mood today. He sat in the car and briefly introduced some of the scenic spots in Qing City to Shi Mengwan, as well as places to go. Unfortunately, Shi Mengwan wanted to tell him the truth and break up, so she was in low spirits and couldn't muster up any energy. In the end, Zhang Haoze thought that she was hungry, so he brought her to a place that was said to be very delicious roasted mutton. It was a typical northern courtyard house, but it was cleverly divided into private rooms. Zhang Haoze and Shi Mengwan were brought into the private room and sat down. Not long after they ordered, Zhang Haoze's phone rang. He glanced at Shi Mengwan and went out to answer the call. He didn't expect that as soon as he walked out, he would meet Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao, who had also come because of the fame. "President Zhang?" "President." The two men stood at the door of the private room and greeted each other. Shi Mengwan saw Su Qingsang at first glance just now. She was quite frightened and instinctively hid in the bathroom in the private room. Zhang Haoze was still chatting with Hu Jinyao outside. Shi Mengwan didn't care about the things that the men talked about at all. She only cared if Zhang Haoze would suddenly go crazy and ask them to come in for dinner. If Su Qingsang saw her, it would really be embarrassing. Fortunately, Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao didn't meet any acquaintances here. They were just here to play. After greeting each other, Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao went to the backyard to watch them roast the whole lamb. Shi Mengwan only felt that her back was covered in sweat. When Zhang Haoze entered the door, her face inevitably became a little gloomy. "I want to leave." Her voice was a little anxious. Looking at Zhang Haoze, she didn't have any intention of staying at all. "The lamb is already being roasted. It'll be ready soon." Zhang Haoze sat down beside her and looked at her pale face. Ever since he came to look for her again this time, it was rare for him to have the intention to tease her. "Are you going out now because you want to meet that good friend of yours?" "Zhang Haoze?" Su Qingsang hadn't returned to the private room yet. "Your good friend is visiting right now. If you go out now, I won't object, but I can't guarantee that you'll coincidentally meet her." Shi Mengwan's expression was very ugly. She glared at Zhang Haoze in front of her, wishing that she could stare a hole in his body. Zhang Haoze squeezed her hand again. "If you want to see her, it's easy. I can ask President Hua to bring her along. It'll be more lively with more people, don't you think?" It was his head. Shi Mengwan turned her face away. She didn't want to see this bastard at all. Naturally, the meal was a little tasteless. Shi Mengwan saw the picture of the roasted lamb posted by Su Qingsang on her WeChat moments. She had even circled her name on it, saying that the next time she came, she could treat her to a good taste. Shi Mengwan finally liked it and threw her phone to the side. That night, Zhang Haoze said that he wanted to take her to the hot spring. Shi Mengwan wasn't in the mood at all. Zhang Haoze, when do you plan to let me go? Why are you in such a hurry? I said that there are many places worth visiting in Qing City. There's even a hot spring here. It's very comfortable to soak in a hot spring in this kind of weather. I'll get someone to arrange it tomorrow. How could Shi Mengwan still be in the mood to soak in a hot spring? She was in a hurry to return to Lin City now. At this moment, Zhang Haoze hugged her waist. Pregnant women can't soak in a hot spring, so don't worry. It's unlikely that your good friend, Mrs. Hua, will meet you. If I return to Lin City, it's even more unlikely that she'll meet me. Shi Mengwan's words were a little mocking. Zhang Haoze acted as if he didn't hear her. He didn't think that something was wrong with Shi Mengwan because he saw her with Chun Feifei. He only thought that the reason why she was unhappy was because he brought her to Qing City without her consent. So, she was throwing a tantrum. Seeing that she couldn't get through to him, Shi Mengwan decided not to say anything. She opened the door like a thief and called the waiter to confirm that Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao were in their own private room. Then, she left in a hurry. Shi Mengwan didn't expect that what she was afraid of would come true. The more she didn't want to meet Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao, the more she would meet them. When she was pulled out of the door by Zhang Haoze and brought to the famous ancient city of Qing City, she actually met Su Qingsang again. She was a fashion designer, so she didn't have a fanatic interest in clothing stores. However, when it came to ethnic clothing stores with unique styles, they had no resistance. Therefore, along the way, even though she didn't want to be with Zhang Haoze at all, when she saw the ethnic clothing store in front of her, she still couldn't help but lift her foot and walk in. Her teacher had once told them that a good fashion design not only needed to be innovative, but also needed to be passed down. What was national was the world, and the characteristics of a nation also needed to be passed down. Shi Mengwan looked at the exquisite, handmade clothes and liked them very much. Zhang Haoze said at the right time, "If you like them, you can try them on." "Yes, miss, you have such a good figure. You will definitely look good in our clothes." The shop assistant said flattering words at the right time. Seeing that Shi Mengwan stood still, she added, "The clothes in our store usually only have one pair of each color and size. Although it's pretty much the same ethnic style, we've done our own processing and processing. Miss, please try them on." It wasn't the peak season for tourism, so there weren't many people. Shi Mengwan looked at the obvious Uyghur costume and finally nodded. She didn't expect that when she went in to try on the clothes, it would be such a coincidence. Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao just happened to enter the store. Speaking of which, Su Qingsang entered this store because of her. Although her belly was big and she couldn't wear it, Shi Mengwan could. Su Qingsang just wanted to buy a gift for Shi Mengwan. But she didn't expect to meet Zhang Haoze. Zhang Haoze also didn't expect that they and Hu Jinyao would meet in such a big city with a population of tens of millions. They were really fated. Hu Jinyao looked at him with a probing gaze. Zhang Haoze was quite calm and even started to chat with Hu Jinyao again. "President Zhang, are you alone?" "No, I'm with my girlfriend." Zhang Haoze openly admitted Shi Mengwan's identity. Of course, he didn't miss the flash of dissatisfaction in Su Qingsang's eyes. Su Qingsang naturally didn't like Zhang Haoze's behavior. One had to know that Zhang Haoze already had Chun Feifei as his fiancée, but now he had another girlfriend. She was willing to bet that his girlfriend was definitely not Chun Feifei. Su Qingsang wasn't interested in meddling in other people's business. She turned around, took a dress that she thought was suitable for Shi Mengwan, and went to the fitting room. On the other end, the shop assistant took the initiative to ask because Shi Mengwan hadn't come out. Zhang Haoze looked at Hu Jinyao, who had been staring at him curiously, and walked into the fitting room under the shop assistant's gaze. Chapter 701. Hearing Su Qingsang's voice outside, Shi Mengwan, who had already changed into a set of ethnic clothes, didn't have the courage to walk out at all. She never expected that she would meet Su Qingsang when Zhang Haoze dragged her out to the night market in the ancient city because she was in a bad mood. She didn't go out, and the shop assistant even started to ask her if she was feeling unwell. Could she be comfortable? Just yesterday, she heard Zhang Haoze call Chun Feifei. Chen Yongchang had already been sent on the plane by Zhang Haoze. Chen Yongchang's illegitimate son was also sent away. If it weren't for Zhang Haoze, it wouldn't have been so easy to achieve such a feat, however. That illegitimate son ran away after getting off the plane. Chen Yongchang was a key target of surveillance, but that illegitimate son wasn't. Chen Feifei was a little nervous when he ran away. She was more or less afraid that he would return to Lin City to take revenge on her. Right now, her foundation wasn't stable. If that person wanted to do something, although she wouldn't be powerless to resist, she would still be an obstacle. However, to Zhang Haoze, everything was under his control. Therefore, he told Chen Feifei not to think too much. That illegitimate son wouldn't be able to run far. He would catch him and lock him up with Chen Yongchang according to the original plan. In Zhang Haoze's heart, this was just a call under a transaction. It couldn't be any more normal. But with Shi Mingwan, it was completely different. It was just that her previous seeing is believing had turned into hearing is believing. Because of this reason, whether it was eating the roasted whole lamb or returning to the Cherry Blossom Manor at night, she didn't have a good expression towards Zhang Haoze. At night, she didn't even allow Zhang Haoze to touch her. Now that he touched her again, she had a huge reaction. The sense of shame that she was a mistress and the resentment that Zhang Haoze had caused her to become like this was very obvious. Therefore, she didn't want to bother with Zhang Haoze at all. Including today, she was also forcefully dragged out by Zhang Haoze to go shopping. If possible, she just wanted to return to Lin City as soon as possible. But in this situation, it was unknown if she could walk out of this small fitting room, let alone return to Lin City. Yet, Zhang Haoze entered the door at this moment. She saw a very light smile on his face as he stared at the embarrassment on her face. "Are you okay?" "Okay." Yes, in his heart. What did other people's feelings count for? She was angry in her heart, but Zhang Haoze still had the ability to take advantage of her at this time. She was angry and reached out to push him without thinking. He advanced. She retreated until there was nowhere to retreat. Afraid of being heard, "What do you think would happen if I took you right here? You look very beautiful in this outfit." "Scared." "If you don't want me to take you here, then beg me." The things he did to her, the words that came out of his mouth sounded like a bastard to her. Zhang Haoze, don't go too far. She hadn't forgotten about the apparel incident last year. She absolutely did not want to become the heroine of such an event. You don't have the slightest sincerity in your pleading. If you listen to me tonight, I'll let you go. How about it? Shi Mingwan had no choice but to lower her head. Please. In the end, Shi Mingwan was carried out of the fitting room by Zhang Haoze, and he even kindly covered her face so that she wouldn't be seen by Hu Jinyao or Su Qing-Seng. However, Shi Mingwan heard the words, "Remember, you owe me again." This shameless bastard. If it weren't for him, how could she have fallen into such a situation? She still owed him again? How thick-skinned was this person? After leaving the ancient city, Shi Mingwan wasn't in the mood to shop anymore. She said that she wanted to go back. Zhang Haoze didn't argue with her and brought her into the car. The majestic motorcade once again drove from the parking lot of the ancient city to Cherry Blossom Manor. It was night. Shi Mingwan, who had taken a shower, went to bed early. She wanted to avoid Zhang Haoze, so she closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep before he finished his work. She thought that Zhang Haoze would let her go if she fell asleep, but it turned out that she was too naive. In a daze, she felt someone pressing on her. That feeling reminded her of a big wolf dog she had raised when she was young. It always liked to pounce on her like this. "Big Yellow, get down," she said in a daze. She didn't forget to reach out and push Big Yellow away. This time, Big Yellow was very persistent. She pushed it a few times, but couldn't push it down. Shi Mingwan called out again. "Big Yellow, stop fooling around." Zhang Haoze propped himself up with one hand and looked at Shi Mingwan. She was really sleeping soundly. There was also Big Yellow. Zhang Haoze's face darkened slightly when he heard the name of some kind of animal. He no longer hesitated and began to take off Shi Mingwan's clothes. There were naturally all kinds of pajamas in the cloakroom. Shi Mingwan chose the most conservative kind. The round-neck cotton pajamas wrapped tightly around her body. But even so, Jean Hausa still saw some of her sexuality. Shi Mingwan had an extremely charming face, but it didn't make her look so beautiful. Instead, the more he looked at her, the more beautiful she became. It was naturally troublesome to take off this set of pajamas. Jean Hausa tried it, but Shi Mingwan was sleeping soundly. His hands didn't stop moving. Just as he was about to lift the clothes up and help her take them off completely, she once again treated him as Big Yellow and pushed him down. Jean Hausa narrowed his eyes. He propped up his arm and stared at Shi Mingwan's hand for a long time. Finally, he got up and left. However, he didn't leave. Instead, he went to get a pair of scissors. The heater was turned on in the room, so he wasn't worried that Shi Mingwan would catch a cold. Jean Hausa used a pair of scissors to fry the comfortable but expensive pajamas just like that. The clothes were cut inch by inch, and the scenery that was previously tightly wrapped was naturally revealed. He cut very carefully and almost didn't touch Shi Mingwan's skin. Putting down the scissors, he continued to take off her pants. This was much easier. However, when he completely took it off, Shi Mingwan also woke up. She dreamed that Big Yellow refused to get off her body no matter what, but even pulled up her blanket. At first, she tried to reach out to pull it, but later, she realized that she couldn't stop it. When she realized that it wasn't Big Yellow who was pulling her pants and woke up, she realized that other than a pair of underwear, she was almost completely naked. Her face turned red, and she instantly woke up. She glared at the culprit. Jean Hausa, what are you doing? Jean Hausa was about to continue tearing off the last small piece of cloth, but he didn't expect Shi Mingwan to wake up. When he met her angry eyes, he propped up his body again and moved closer to her. His lips pointed at her cheek. He kissed her lips, then moved his lips over and landed on her earlobe. He gently bit the small jade bead. What do you think I'm doing? You go down for me. Go down. Jean Hausa chuckled. His big hand picked up Shi Mingwan's black hair that was scattered on the pillow and sniffed. Your memory isn't very good. Do you want me to remind you what you promised me? What? Shi Mingwan woke up, but she was still in a daze. She didn't understand what he meant at all. Previously in the ancient city, you promised me that you would listen to me when you came back. Shi Mingwan's expression froze. She suddenly reacted. In front of her, Jean Hausa was half lying there with one hand supporting his body. His burning gaze was like that of a wolf as he stared at her. How could such a Jean Hausa not make her afraid? Without thinking, she wanted to get off the bed. Jean Hausa easily wrapped his arms around her waist. What? Do you want to go back on your word? Shi Mingwan swallowed her saliva. She really didn't know how to respond to this. You're a scoundrel. At that time, she had no other choice. Scoundrel? Who's a scoundrel? Jean Hausa retracted his arm, and she pressed close to his body. He had just taken a shower and only had a bath towel on his body. Touching his slightly warm chest, Shi Mingwan felt a little thirsty. Of course it's you. If it weren't for you, how could I? He didn't finish his sentence, but Jean Hausa understood what he meant. He chuckled and raised her chin with his other hand. So, you don't want to admit it now, do you? Who wanted to admit it? Shi Mingwan pushed him, and Jean Hausa bit her lips. It's fine if you don't want to admit it. He took a few steps back, and his gaze fell on Shi Mingwan's face, as if he was thinking. Speaking of which, I've worked with President Hua 2 or 3 times. The manor we're living in now was given by the Hua family's Tianyu group. We've worked together so many times, and we're living in a house developed by others, but I've never invited him here as a guest. It's really a little rude. Seeing that Shi Mingwan's little face was gradually turning pale, he slowly said, Why don't I be the host tomorrow and invite President Hua and Mrs. Hua to my humble house? I can also be considered to be a host. What do you think? Not much. This blatant threat made Shi Mingwan's expression very ugly. She glared at Jean Hausa in front of her, wishing that she could glare at his face. However, at this moment, she was lying down and wasn't wearing any clothes. No matter how she glared at him, she didn't have any imposing manner. Instead, to Jean Hausa, it was like seduction. You don't object? Then it's settled. Jean Hausa got up and was about to get off the bed. I'll get someone to arrange it now. Enough. Shi Mingwan quickly sat up and reached out to grab his hand. Her face was very red. What exactly do you want? I told you. You'll listen to me today. Shi Mingwan was extremely annoyed. Did she have any other choice now? She closed her eyes and nodded. She lay back on the bed. Jean Hauser narrowed his eyes at her expression, as if she was about to die. He stared at Shi Mingwan's face for a while, then suddenly got up and left. The sudden sound of footsteps leaving surprised Shi Mingwan. She really didn't understand why he would be so kind as to let her go. She lowered her head and looked at herself. She seemed to have just realized her current state, so she quickly pulled up the blanket to cover her body. She curled up and wanted to find her clothes, but she suspected that Jean Hauser wouldn't let her go so easily. Sure enough, it didn't take long for Jean Hauser to return. This time, he had something in his hand. Shi Mingwan, who heard the voice, turned around and saw the thing in his hand. Her little face was slightly stunned, and she just stared at him blankly. Today is a good day to remember. Jean Hauser took a few steps forward and walked to the bedside. He looked at Shi Mingwan, and his eyes carried a depth that she could see at a glance. So, let's drink to celebrate. As he spoke, he had already placed the 2 open bottles of wine in his hands on the bedside table. There were also 2 wine glasses placed there. Shi Mingwan swallowed her saliva. What was this guy trying to do? Realizing the danger, Shi Mingwan's first reaction was to escape. Jean Hauser didn't give her a chance. The moment she got up, he held her in his arms. He imprisoned her body in his arms and sat on the bed, hugging Shi Mingwan, who was almost naked. Didn't you say that you'll listen to me today? Why are you running? How could Shi Mingwan not want to run? She was almost sure that what Jean Hauser wanted her to do later would definitely make her feel very ashamed and unwilling. She didn't answer, and Jean Hauser didn't force her. He was in a good mood today. He picked up the bottle of wine and poured the 2 glasses. He picked up one of the glasses and handed it to Shi Mingwan. Shi Mingwan looked at the wine glass and shook her head. I don't know how to drink. Even if she did, she didn't want to drink it now. The situation in front of her was too dangerous. Although she agreed to listen to Jean Hauser, she still wanted to have a chance to breathe. Jean Hauser narrowed his eyes and didn't force her. He directly drank the wine in the glass in one gulp. Just as Shi Mingwan thought that he was going to let her go, he pressed the back of her head and aimed at her lips. When Shi Mingwan got up from the bed in the morning, she hadn't recovered from that shameful and secret lust. Her limbs were weak, and her body was weak. The bedding on the bed had been changed long ago. Not only the bed sheets and quilt covers, but even a mattress underneath had been changed. When she thought about how Jean Hauser had shamelessly asked someone to come up and change the bedding after carrying her into the bathroom last night, Shi Mingwan wished she could find a hole to hide in. She didn't want to go downstairs at all, nor did she want to go out. Feeling someone come in, she buried her face in the quilt. But very quickly, the quilt was lifted. Get up and eat. Jean Hauser sat by the bed and looked at her. The last thing she wanted to see was Jean Hauser. She turned around and didn't look at him at all. I can't eat. Wan. Before his hand could touch her shoulder, she had already waved it away. Such a simple action made her body ache. It could be seen how much someone had gone overboard yesterday. Jean Hauser, I want to go back to Lin City. She had had enough. She had been here for 3 days. On the first day, she had taken a quick stroll around the streets and glanced around. On the second day, she hadn't even walked 1/3 of the ancient city trip when she gave up because she met Su Qing-sang. There was no need to mention today. Because of Jean Hauser's craziness yesterday, her waist was now soft. Not to mention going out to play, she found it difficult to go downstairs. You haven't played yet. Why are you going back? Jean Hauser didn't understand why she was throwing a tantrum again. She had clearly agreed to stay for a few days. When he met Shi Mingwan's mocking gaze, Jean Hauser's face heated up, and he suddenly reacted. Sorry. He reached out to touch her cheek. His strength was gentle. I lost control yesterday. It wasn't just yesterday that he lost control. Shi Mingwan glared at him and wanted to bite him in her heart. Jean Hauser, no matter what you say, I have to go back to Lin City. You arrange it. It wasn't that she didn't want to book her own plane ticket home, but Jean Hauser, this extremely shameless person, had taken away her ID. She only found out later that she could use her bag as she pleased, but the ID inside had long been taken away by Jean Hauser. How could she return to Lin City in such a situation? Can't you play here for 2 more days? When Jean Hauser spoke, he happened to meet her angry eyes. He held her hand. You're not feeling well today. Rest for a day. We'll go out tomorrow. No need. She wasn't in the mood to play with Jean Hauser. If I stay here any longer, I'll lose my life. Not only was she angry, but she was also embarrassed. Last night, she almost died in his hands a few times. How could she dare to stay? Moreover, Su Qingseng and Hu Jinyao were still in Qing City. Qing City wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. There were only so many places she could play. If she met them again, she really wouldn't want to live anymore. Jean Hauser frowned and looked at the resistance on her face. He knew that he had indeed gone overboard last night. It was just that the feeling was too beautiful. He really couldn't control himself. The atmosphere was silent for a moment. Shi Mingwan said again, I want to go back to Lin City. Jean Hauser looked at her as if he was looking at a willful child. When Shi Mingwan said that she wanted to go back for the 3rd time, he finally reacted. I'll get someone to send you back tomorrow. Shi Mingwan didn't believe that he would be so easy to talk to. As she wished, Jean Hauser added, but you have to accompany me on another trip tonight. I'm not going. You'll like it, Jean Hauser said very gently. You were too tired yesterday. I'll take you to the hot spring tonight. Shi Mingwan looked at Jean Hauser. The person in front of her wasn't as evil and perverted as he was last night. He looked at her with a very focused gaze. Not only was he focused, but she also found her own shadow in it. Her heart suddenly skipped a beat. She turned her face away to avoid Jean Hauser's gaze and told herself, these were all false appearances. He was a bastard who had a foot in both camps, a scumbag. Jean Hauser had no way of knowing what Shi Mingwan was thinking. He was also very free today. To him, his rare patience and good temper were all used on Shi Mingwan. At night, he really brought Shi Mingwan to the hot spring. As if he knew the trauma he had caused to her yesterday, Jean Hauser didn't do anything this time. The hot spring water made Shi Mingwan feel much more comfortable. After returning to Cherry Blossom Villa to rest, she slept until midnight. She was once again woken up by Jean Hauser's blood on the day of the accident. The nightmare came again, and this time, she woke up directly. Wanwan, are you okay? Jean Hauser slept with her. Shi Mingwan shook her head. She hadn't had this dream for some time. She had no time to care about Jean Hauser's concern. Shi Mingwan hurriedly went into the bathroom to wash her face and calm down. Her good friend, who she met once a month, came as scheduled. Shi Mingwan looked at herself in the mirror and suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. She wasn't pregnant. Jean Hauser's misdeeds these few times had made her confused. There were even a few times when he didn't take any precautions, and she didn't have the rationality to remind him. Now that her period had finally come, she wasn't pregnant. That was good enough. She came out of the bathroom and had just laid down when Jean Hauser's hand came over. He saw that her mood wasn't right just now, so he knew that she had a nightmare. He wanted to ask her how she was. My period is here. Shi Mingwan closed her eyes and didn't look at him at all. Don't touch me. Jean Hauser's hand stopped for a moment. He looked at the resistance on Shi Mingwan's face and didn't understand why she would lose her temper again. I just wanted to ask if you had a nightmare. You. She didn't have to treat him like a beast. Every time he touched her, he wanted to have sex with her, right? Thank you for your concern. Shi Mingwan still didn't open her eyes, and her voice was even colder than before. I didn't have a nightmare. I'm fine. Save your concern for someone you should care about more. Don't think that she didn't know that he had contacted Chen Feifei when he was soaking in the hot spring tonight. Since he couldn't bear to part with her, why was he putting on an act in front of her now? He didn't think he was hypocritical, but she found it disgusting. Jean Hauser contacted Chen Feifei today because his people had found the illegitimate son who had run away. He had also sent him to Qin Yongchang. He had arranged the rest of the matters. For the time being, other than the matter of the Chun family's company in Lin City, he had nothing to do with Chen Feifei. He didn't know that Shi Mingwan had heard his call. That was why she didn't like him so much now. He suddenly heard her say something about someone he should care about more. He didn't react at all to who she was talking about. The person I care about the most is you. His words could be considered as a confession. Sure Mengwan didn't believe a single word. Just now, he had been persuading Miss Chan on the phone not to worry, but now he turned around and told her that the person he cared about the most was her. Who would believe him? She didn't believe him anyway. Sure Mengwan rested for a night and didn't stay for another day. The next day, as soon as Jean Hauser arranged the plane, she immediately flew back to Lin City. Sitting on the plane, she looked at the empty seat next to her. This time, Jean Hauser didn't return to Lin City with her, which made her feel very unreal. Jean Hauser really let her go home just like that? He didn't follow her, and he didn't send anyone to keep an eye on her? This really didn't make sense. But sure Mengwan didn't care about him. Maybe Jean Hauser was satisfied after that night and was tired of it. Maybe he finally decided to be kind and let her go. Thinking of this, sure Mengwan relaxed. Thinking of what Jean Hauser did that night, she still felt a little uncomfortable. But this kind of uneasiness was insignificant compared to the freedom and equal relationship she needed to enjoy. No matter how overbearing Jean Hauser was or how much he pestered her, it was over for them now, right? For the next month, Jean Hauser didn't come to look for her, which confirmed her guess. Good, very good. Jean Hauser finally let her go. Chapter 702. In a sanatorium on the outskirts of Qing City. Uncle Chi stood in front of the door and looked at Jean Hauser with disapproval in his eyes. Young master, now that the Jean family is in your hands, why do you get out of the way? Jean Hauser's voice was extremely indifferent. He looked at Uncle Chi, who was standing in front of him, with an ice-cold gaze. Uncle Chi gritted his teeth and was extremely regretful. He still wanted to stop him, but the people beside Jean Hauser had already stopped him. Just like that, Jean Hauser pushed open the door behind him and walked in. The environment of the room inside was very good. It wasn't like an ordinary apartment for the elderly. The room was very big, and there was a bed in the middle. Jean Kuan was sleeping on the bed. There was a wheelchair near the bed. It was already winter in Qing City, and the wind was cold outside. Because of the previous stroke, Jean Kuan couldn't move half of his body, but he was still conscious and could still move. When he saw Jean Hauser enter the door, his eyes widened. He looked at him as if he was looking at an enemy. You. After 2 strokes in a row, Jean Kuan's voice was hoarse. He raised a hand to point at Jean Hauser, but he only had one hand that he could move, and it was trembling when he raised it. This made him even angrier, and the expression on his face looked very ferocious. Jean Hauser didn't notice the gloomy expression on his face. He walked to the bed, pulled out a chair beside him, and sat down. His legs were elegantly folded together. You be ****. Jean Hauser looked at him and said the last 2 words for him. Let's change the words. You have to know that this be *** is also your seed. Jean Kuan's face had already turned purplish red. Jean Hauser sneered. Isn't it? If you didn't give birth to my father, where'd I come from? He chuckled and supported his chin with one hand. So, aren't you the be ****? Jean Kuan was panting heavily. Jean Hauser looked at his agitated expression. By the way, you probably don't know, right? The Jean family is now in my hands. Nothing made Jean Kuan more angry and resentful than this. When he saw Jean Hauser enter the door and knew that Jean Hauser wasn't dead, he already knew that something must have gone wrong. Now, Jean Hauser's words made him realize that someone had lied to him. Speaking of which, I really have to thank your good subordinates. If Uncle Chi hadn't handed the Jean family to me, how could I have gotten the Jean family so easily? Jean Kuan couldn't even speak fluently. He pointed at Jean Hauser, his eyes full of resentment. About 4 or 5 months. Do you know what I've done in the past 4 or 5 months? Jean Hauser didn't need his response. He only came today to let Jean Kuan know what he was capable of. That Jean you're interested in. Last month, he made a mistake in his investment and then accidentally slept with Brother Rong's woman. He's being hunted down by Brother Rong. Jean Kuan's face had already begun to turn green. Jean Hauser frowned slightly. Logically speaking, Jean is a member of the Jean family. Brother Rong has to give the Jean family some face. But I told him that he didn't need to give me face, and that he should deal with it as he should. Jean Kuan covered his heart with one hand. He couldn't even say the word you now. As for Jean Yi's father, Jean Ji, and because his son was being hunted down by Brother Rong, he looked for Brother Rong. He wanted to take revenge on Brother Rong, but he accidentally died in Brother Rong's hands. TSK, how pitiful. Jean Kuan had already begun to pant heavily, and his face turned from green to black. All right, there's also Jean Li and Jean Yang. I asked them to develop a branch in South Africa. You know, we don't have a branch in South Africa. The two of them are the same. Their tempers are too bad. They are very arrogant in the local area, and they have conflicts with the locals. Now, one of them has 2 broken legs, and the other has a pair of broken hands. How tragic. Jean Kuan raised his hand again, wanting to point at Jean Hausa. Jean Hausa laughed. Your other son, Jean Quan, was scared out of his wits. He brought his 2 stupid sons, Jean Chung and Jean Shur. He went back to his father-in-law's side. He took the initiative to call me and told me that he would never take a step in a Qing city in his life. He just asked me to spare their families' lives. Look, Min Quan is my uncle after all. Since he begged me like this, of course I agreed. It's just that his wife thinks he's useless, and now she's divorcing him every day. Last time, she accidentally fell down the stairs when the 2 of them were fighting. It's said that she suffered a fracture and is still in the hospital. This has nothing to do with me. Jean Kuan put down his hand again, and his body was half curled up. He looked at Jean Hausa with red eyes, but he couldn't say a word. Oh right, after saying so much, I haven't talked about Jean Lai, who is currently staying in the Jean family's mansion. Jean Kuan's eyes were about to pop out, and the veins on his forehead were popping out. Don't worry, his hands and feet are still there. Other than not being able to go out and not having freedom, there's nothing bad about it. It's just that his wife isn't very good. Every day, she looks at Jean Li and Jean Yang's broken hands and feet and curses me 800 times a day. Jean Kuan's face was already full of pain. He was originally half sitting, but now his body was curled up. His face, which was already covered with age spots, was full of pain. You must be wondering why I didn't do anything to the couple, right? Don't worry, I like to take it slow. Keep them and slowly torture them. Jean Kuan was already speechless. He looked like he was about to suffocate in pain. Jean Hausa stood up at this moment and looked down at the old man who was already old and didn't have the ability to resist. Do you hate me? That's right. Don't worry, I won't let you die. Here, I will invite the best medical team to save your life. I want you to watch how the Jean family flourishes in my hands and how it will be destroyed bit by bit in my hands. Looking at Jean Kuan, who had already begun to roll his eyes and was about to faint, Jean Hausa's gaze was cold. When you shot my mother, you should have thought of today. Before Jean Kuan lost consciousness, he bent down. Back then, you really should have killed me as well. After saying this, Jean Hausa stood up and left without looking back. Jean Kuan completely fainted. Jean Hausa left the room and asked his men to loosen the restraints on Uncle Chi. Uncle Chi didn't even have the time to say anything harsh. He hurriedly ran into the room. Master Kuan, how are you? Jean Hausa waved his hand, and doctors and nurses immediately rushed in. He glanced at the doctor who was walking at the back. Keep him alive. Don't let him die. I want him to live a little longer. When he left the sanatorium, Jean Hausa was in a very good mood. Tang Hua looked at the joy on his face. Boss, are we going back to the company now, or go to Lin's city? In the few months since he took over the Jean family, those people have been playing small tricks and making big moves. He had escaped death a few times and averted danger a few times. Last time, he was almost injured and didn't even have a good New Year. In such a situation, he didn't have the time to look for Shi Mengwan. The last time Shi Mengwan said that she wanted to return to Lin City, he let her go for her safety. Now that the problem was almost solved, of course he had to go and bring him back. Yes, Tang Huan nodded, but he suddenly thought of something else. Oh right, boss, President whose wife gave birth to a pair of twins. In 2 days, there will be a full moon banquet. The invitation has already been sent over. Mrs. Hua and Miss Sher have such a good relationship, so Miss Sher will definitely attend. Why don't we go to Rome City first? Otherwise, if we go to Lin City and Miss Sher goes to Rome City, Jean Hausa narrowed his eyes. Then let's go to Rome City. Help me prepare a generous gift. Not to mention the cooperation with Jean Hausa. With Shi Mengwan and Su Qingsang's relationship, there would be plenty of interaction in the future. Since that was the case, of course, he had to prepare a generous gift. Okay, Jean Hausa relaxed and thought of Shi Mengwan's beautiful face. With her personality, he believed that she would be angry with him for not looking for her for so long. When they met tomorrow, perhaps he should coax her. Jean Hausa, who had solved most of the trouble, was already thinking about how to coax Shi Mengwan. The full moon banquet of the Hua family's twins was indeed extremely lively. When Jean Hausa arrived in Rome City, he asked Tang Hua to check. Shi Mengwan had come the day before yesterday. Moreover, she was staying at the Hua family's house with Su Qingsang. Jean Hausa wouldn't go to the Hua family to look for her. After enduring for a day, he finally had the chance to see Shi Mengwan today. He had been around Rome City a lot these few years, and many people knew him. Especially recently, the Zhan family in Qing City had been in turmoil. Jean Hausa had almost become a popular figure in Qing City. After greeting a few people who had worked with him before and having to socialize, he finally saw Shi Mengwan. Shi Mengwan didn't see him. At this moment, she was in front of Su Qingsang and looking at the baby in her arms. Her eyes were full of smiles, and her gaze at the baby was very gentle. He had never seen Shi Mengwan like this before. Jean Hausa was just about to go forward when a man came. Wan Xianying, Jin Yao's childhood friend. The way he looked at Shi Mengwan made him very unhappy. He knew that Shi Mengwan didn't like Wan Xianying, but having such a man appear by Shi Mengwan's side from time to time was enough to make him unhappy. In the past, he had no choice. In order to destroy the Zhan family, he had to endure it. But now, he didn't need to endure it. Naturally, he didn't need to watch Wan Xianying fawn over his woman. Fortunately, before he could go forward, Shi Mengwan had already taken the initiative to stand far away. Then, she excused herself to go to the bathroom and left. He followed behind her. He didn't expect that Shi Mengwan would send Wan Xianying away, and then Li Junsheng would come. Li Junsheng was a person who was even more difficult to deal with than Wan Xianying. In the past 2 years, he had made a lot of moves in Lin City. He had pulled down a group of people and helped another group of people. The key was that such a person actually didn't have any money on his hands. And he clearly saw it. Li Junsheng's eyes revealed interest in Shi Mengwan. That was really not a good thing for him. 10 minutes later, he looked at Shi Mengwan, who was suppressed under him. She was clearly very surprised to see him. But the surprise was only for a moment. Her eyes quickly revealed other emotions. Are you crazy? Is this the men's bathroom? Looking at the accusation in her eyes, he thought about how she was able to smile at Li Junsheng just now. In the end, Jean Hausa couldn't help it. He lowered his head and kissed her lips in a very domineering manner. Ever since they parted that day, the two of them hadn't seen each other for a long time. It wasn't that he didn't want to look for her, or even that he didn't want to contact her. It was just that the situation in the Zhan family was complicated. Not to mention those illegitimate children that Zhan Cohen had admitted. There were also many people with the surname Zhan that he hadn't made public. Although Zhan Cohen didn't recognize these people, he was still somewhat related to them. After all these years, Zhan Ji, Zhan Quan, Zhan Lai, and the others had their own forces in the Zhan family in Qing City. He had made a deal with Uncle Qi, but it didn't mean that he had made a deal with other people. It was better to be safe than sorry. In order not to put her in any danger, he could only suppress the urge to see her. Jean Hausa, let go of me. When he let go of her, the first thing she said made him unhappy again. She would always let go of him, break up, not want to see him, and resist. But she could be 30% smiling and 70% gentle to other men. The longing that he hadn't seen her for a long time, coupled with the stimulation of seeing her chatting and laughing with other men, made him a little speechless. Wan Xianying, Jin Yao's childhood friend, the second young master of the Wan family. Now he runs 2 antique shops. Among them, Gu Longshuan's business is the biggest. Every year, it brings one Xianying hundreds of millions of profits. This was only Gu Longshuan's shop. As for the other businesses, this second young master of the Wan family was also doing quite well. As for the other one, Li Junsheng, the mayor of Lin City, his family has been in the right place for generations. Li Junsheng is young, but he is already the leader of Lin City. In the past year, through the investment of a master, he has developed and renovated the old city area of Lin City. He is very popular in Lin City. I didn't expect you to be so good at seducing men. You can actually attract the favor of two men like this in one go. Seeing Shi Mingwan angrily slap him, Zhang Haoze grabbed her hand. Are you angry? He should be the one who was angry, right? Why didn't she know how to keep her distance from other men? Shi Mingwan wasn't just angry. She was simply furious. Zhang Haoze, not every man is like you. Like me? What do you mean? Zhang Haoze leaned over and leaned close to Shi Mingwan's face. His breath pointed at her cheek. Don't you like people like me? Who likes you? Isn't it you? It was said that men didn't recognize people after getting out of bed. This woman in front of her was the one who didn't recognize people after getting out of bed, right? Who was the one who kept calling me husband last time? Who was the one who said she loved me? Who liked me? Who was the one who kept asking me to F***CKU? Shi Mingwan's hand was grabbed by Zhang Haoze, but she was so angry that her face turned red. If this man hadn't shamelessly used such a method to force her last time, why would she have said so many shameless words? When she thought about the last time the two of them had sex, she couldn't bear to look back at what this man had done to her. Every time she thought about it, she would be so embarrassed that she couldn't show her face. Now, he had to bring it up again. Shi Mingwan couldn't hit him, so she was angry. She simply moved her mouth forward and bit his arm with all her might. She bit very hard. The grievance of being entangled with Zhang Haoze for more than a year, the humiliation of being bullied by him again and again, and the shame of being forced to be a mistress. At this moment, it all turned into the strength of her teeth. The more she bit, the harder she bit. She even tasted the taste of blood. She didn't let go, so Zhang Haoze let her bite. It wasn't until she bit her lips until they were numb and she couldn't bite anymore that she had no choice but to retreat. He finally hooked up her chin and made her look at him. How ruthless. He looked at the blood on her lips and gently wiped it away. The words that came out of his mouth made Shi Mingwan want to bite him again. Fortunately, you bit my hand. If you bit my brother, you won't have any happiness in your next life. Shi Mingwan opened her mouth to bite him again, but he hugged her. At the same time, he lowered his head and gave her another long kiss. When he kissed her until she couldn't breathe, he finally let go of her and hugged her limp body in his arms. He lowered his head and kissed the top of her head. My hand is so hard. It's a waste of energy for you to bite me. You'll even make your teeth hurt. He leaned close to her ear and gently nibbled on her earlobe. If you really like biting people so much, I'd rather you bite another part of me. Understanding the hint in Zhang Haoze's words, Shi Mingwan thought of the embarrassing scene from last time. She couldn't stay any longer. She pushed him away forcefully. Zhang Haoze hugged her waist and hugged her again. It's boring to participate in such a banquet. Why don't we leave first? If you want to leave, you can leave. I'm not leaving. She especially liked Su Qingsong's pair of twins. She couldn't wait to hug them for a while longer. She didn't want to leave just like that. You like children? Zhang Haoze looked at her and knew what she was thinking. If you really like them so much, let's have one too. Have one. Shi Mingwan suddenly turned around and looked at him. Her eyes were filled with mockery. Zhang Haoze, you said you want to have a child with me? Yes. Can't I? Do you know what it means for you to have a child with me? What? The child has to take my surname and enter the Shi family tree. Shi Mingwan sneered. Her face was deliberately embarrassed. More importantly, I'm not even married to you. Why should I have a child with you? You want to marry me? Zhang Haoze looked at her. There was a look in his eyes that Shi Mingwan had never seen before. Do you dare? The sarcasm on Shi Mingwan's face deepened. Do you dare to marry me? Zhang Haoze, do you dare make it public? Do you dare to let others know that I'm your girlfriend? Instead of hiding and sneaking around like before. Did he dare? Jean Hausa looked at the obvious provocation in her eyes and reached out to pull her hand. You want to make it public? You want to marry me? You want others to know that I'm your boyfriend? Yes, I do. But do you dare? She had had enough. She had had enough of him coming and going as he pleased. She didn't want to endure it anymore. He had taken everything from her, but he could still let other women get close to him. More importantly, she had had enough of him having a fiancé, and she had to bear the blame of being the third party. She had had enough of all of this. She had already given him many chances, time and again, over and over again. Now, she didn't want to give him another chance. This was the last time. If he couldn't do it, then he would never come looking for her again. This wasn't in Qing City, nor was it in Lin City. This was Rong City, Hua Jinyao's territory, and she believed that with Hua Jinyao's ability and her relationship with Su Qingsang, Hua Jinyao would definitely be able to protect her from being harassed by Jean Hausa. Seeing that Jean Hausa didn't say anything, Shi Mengwan sneered and asked again, "Do you dare?" Jean Hausa looked at her with a rare smile on his face. He suddenly grabbed her hand and led her outside. Shi Mengwan was shocked by his sudden action. She followed behind him, and the two of them left the men's bathroom together. Coincidentally, someone was coming over to use the bathroom. Seeing a man and a woman leaving together, the other party's gaze made Shi Mengwan feel extremely embarrassed again. She wished she could find a hole to hide in. She glared at Jean Hausa hatefully. It was all his. Every time she met him, nothing good happened. He always embarrassed her. While she was distracted, Jean Hausa had already brought her to the hall. Shi Mengwan, who realized what Jean Hausa was going to do, had no time to retreat. Just like that, she held hands with Jean Hausa and appeared in front of everyone. Su Qingsang had just coaxed Nian Yin and was about to carry her to the nanny when she saw Jean Hausa and Su Qingsang coming out hand in hand. Her eyes widened as if her eyeballs were about to fall out. Hua Jinyao happened to be surrounded by a group of childhood friends. He held her in his arms and thought about it. Wan Xianying was extremely envious. He was about to coax Hua Jinyao into giving him a hug when he saw it from the corner of his eyes. His eyes widened for a moment. The moment he saw Jean Hausa, he remembered who this person was. He had no choice. Who asked Jean Hausa to be too famous in the past few months? In terms of methods and scheming, who could compare to Jean Hausa? Just based on the methods he used to deal with his cousins and uncles in the Jean family, this person made people feel a chill run down their spines. But now, such a chilling man was holding a woman's hand with a gentle expression. It was too late for Shi Mengwan to retract her hand. Su Qingsang had already seen it. Jean Hausa held her hand and walked towards Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang really didn't have a good impression of Jean Hausa. Last year, when she went to Qing City to play, she saw him with another woman. He originally had a fiancée in Lin City. Later, when she saw what he did, she disliked him even more. Even if Jean Hausa and Hua Jinyao had business dealings, that was only between men. From her point of view, she really didn't like people like Jean Hausa. Mrs. Hua. Jean Hausa put his arm around Shi Mengwan's waist and nodded slightly. Thank you for taking care of Wan these few days. Thank you. Su Qingsang blinked. She looked at Jean Hausa and then at Shi Mengwan and suddenly smiled. President Jean, you're welcome. Wan is my best friend. It's my duty to take care of her. However, I don't understand President Jean's thank you. May I know in what capacity? President Jean, are you thanking me? Wan's boyfriend and future husband, Jean Hausa announced. He tightened his arm around Shi Mengwan's waist and let her get closer to him. When Wan and I get married, please come to the wedding, Mrs. Hua. This was really a smooth answer. Shi Mengwan looked at him, the expression on her face very interesting. Chapter 703. But when she thought that what Jean Hausa said might be true, her heart suddenly beat fast. Su Qingsang was already married and had child, even though she used to be a little cold. After these days, she had changed a lot. She looked at the seriousness in Jean Hausa's eyes and stood up. Sorry, Mr. Jean. I have a few words to say to Wan. Mrs. Hua, if you have anything to say, you can say it directly. Wan is thin-skinned. I'm afraid she will be shy. Su Qingsang almost choked on her own saliva. Shi Mingwan was thin-skinned? When the two of them were together in the past, which one of them was the one who would talk dirty at the slightest disagreement? Now Zhang Haoze was telling her that Shi Mingwan was thin-skinned. The corner of her mouth twitched, and she glanced at Shi Mingwan. Shi Mingwan was really a little embarrassed. She glared at Zhang Haoze. Qing Sang, I'll tell you later. Wait a minute. Su Qing Sang pulled her body to her side, leaned close to her ear, and said very softly, "What's going on?" "Don't ask." Shi Mingwan was really embarrassed. "I'll tell you later." Okay, today was the big day of the twins, so it wasn't convenient for her to keep pestering Shi Mingwan. However, if he forced you, you can tell me. I'll let Hua Jinyao deal with him. Su Qing Sang said this in a low voice, but Zhang Haoze heard it clearly. Qing Sang. Shi Mingwan's expression was a little subtle. Su Qing Sang patted her hand and stood up like a family member to look at Zhang Haoze. President Zhang seems to have a fiancée? Yes. Although Zhang Haoze and Chun Feifei hadn't been officially engaged, everyone in Lin City knew about it. We've broken off the engagement. Really? Su Qing Sang raised her eyebrows. Why haven't I heard about it? How could such a sensational thing as breaking off the engagement be brushed aside so easily? The two sides have made a private agreement, but it hasn't been announced yet. It hasn't been announced, which means that President Zhang still has a fiancée. Su Qing Sang spoke impolitely. If that's the case, how can you claim that you're Wanwan's boyfriend? What do you think of Wanwan? Qing Sang. Shi Mingwan didn't want Su Qing Sang and Zhang Haoze to have a conflict now. Stop it. How can I not tell you? Some things have to be clarified. Su Qing Sang was extremely protective. How can you believe him just because he said something nice? Mrs. Hua, my engagement with Chun Feifei has long been dissolved. This matter, after I ask him, will be made public. As for me and Wanwan, my feelings for Wanwan are naturally serious. Don't worry, I won't let her down. Anyone can say nice things. Not many can do it. Su Qing Sang wasn't targeting Zhang Haoze, but this man had a bad record. If he wasn't with Shi Mingwan, no matter how many women he had relationships with, it was none of her business. However, her friendship with Shi Mingwan was different, so she naturally couldn't bear to see her good sister being bullied. Say something nice, I don't know how to do it, but I think I can prove it with my actions. Zhang Haoze was still holding Shi Mingwan's hand. Shi Mingwan turned to look at him because of his words. His overly sincere eyes made her a little moved for a moment. Su Qing Sang wanted to say something, but someone else came. The Hua family had many relatives and friends in the business world. As Hua Jinyao's wife, there were naturally many people who came to get close to her. Su Qing Sang didn't have time to pay attention to Shi Mingwan, so she gave her a look, signaling her to talk later. However, if she was a little later, Shi Mingwan would be taken away by Zhang Haoze. Zhang Haoze didn't like such occasions. After taking Shi Mingwan to the public, he stayed for a while and left with her. The hotel that Zhang Haoze booked was in the presidential suite upstairs. He took Shi Mingwan directly upstairs. Shi Mingwan actually hadn't recovered from Zhang Haoze's action of revealing her identity just now. When she was taken upstairs, Zhang Haoze kissed her lips. When he kissed her, he didn't forget to take off her red coat. The sleeveless dress underneath was revealed. He held her waist and brought her into his arms. He had wanted to do this when he was in the men's bathroom. As he kissed her, Shi Mingwan gradually came back to her senses. Just as his hand was about to continue, she grabbed his hand. Zhang Haoze stopped and pressed his forehead against hers. Wanwan, the clear breath on his body brushed against her face, and she almost fell into his bewitching trap again. Blinking, she pressed her hands against his chest to calm herself down. Zhang Haoze, you said that you broke off the engagement with Chun Feifei? Yes. Just didn't make it public? Yes. Then, did Chun Feifei tacitly agree to this? What did he mean? I mean, you unilaterally want to break off the engagement with her, or did she agree? Of course she agreed. He said it seriously, but Shi Mingwan didn't really believe him. This matter had always been a thorn in her heart. She couldn't believe him so easily. Seeing that she didn't speak, Zhang Haoze lowered his head and was about to kiss her again. Shi Mingwan didn't give him a chance. She stubbornly pressed her hand against his chest. Since that's the case, then wait until the news of you breaking off the engagement is made public before you get together. Jean Hausa looked at the determination on her face and felt a headache coming on. You don't believe me? I can't find a reason to believe you. Mengwan bit her lip. She looked at Jean Hausa with clear eyes, but there was a hint of sadness in them. Jean Hausa, I believed you time and time again. I don't want to believe you now. Jean Hausa looked at the anger on her face. So what do you mean now? Nothing. Mengwan waved his hand away. When can you get Qin Feifei to publicly stand up and admit to breaking off the engagement? I'll consider getting back together with you. The word she used was consider. Even though Jean Hausa had revealed his identity like this, she had to think more after calming down. Where was this? This was Rong City. Not to mention that it was 108,000 miles away from Lin City. It would take a few hours to get to Qing City. Jean Hausa publicly announced their relationship in Rong City. On the surface, it looked like he was finally willing to give her an open identity. But what was the truth? After returning to Lin City, he could still continue to be Qin Feifei's fiancée. And as long as the engagement wasn't broken off, she would still be a shameful mistress who couldn't see the light of day. She was calm enough and rational enough now. She didn't want to believe Jean Hausa's words anymore. Even if at that moment, Jean Hausa, who brought her to the public, made her heart beat so much that she wanted to throw everything away and follow him. But that was all. She wouldn't believe him anymore. Her heart was already cold. Her expression was determined. At this moment, Jean Hausa understood that what she said was true. Wan, it's getting late. I'll go downstairs first. Mengwan retreated from his arms, lowered her head, and picked up the small coat on the ground. Wan, don't go. He went to pull her hand. After not seeing her for a while, he didn't believe that she didn't miss him. Jean Hausa, Mengwan gently pulled his hand away. You know what I want. If you can't give it to me, don't come looking for me again. After saying this, Mengwan left without looking back. Qin Feifei looked at Jean Hausa in front of her. After not seeing him for a few months, he seemed to be different again. However, she really was in the mood to care about how Jean Hausa was doing. Brother Hao, you came back at the right time. I'm in trouble. What? Jean Hausa was about to say that the Qin Corporation had been on the right track recently and asked Qin Feifei to publicly break off the engagement with him. However, her words made him stop for a moment. No matter what the reason was, when Qin Feifei was in trouble, he would help her. Qin Jie's mother is here. Jean Hausa was stunned for a few seconds before he remembered who Qin Jie was. He was Qin Yongchang's illegitimate child outside. He would be following Qin Yongchang and Qin Yongchang to retire in a small town in Canada. His mother? After Jean Hausa found out about Qin Jie, he specially checked his mother's information. According to the information, the other party took care of Qin Jie for a period of time after giving birth to him. Later, for some unknown reason, she left on her own. As for where she went, the information didn't find it. At that time, Jean Hausa didn't care about this. Therefore, he didn't continue to investigate. Is there a problem? The woman surnamed Liang is Qin Jie's mother. I don't know where she got one made by my father, but she said that the Qin Corporation belongs to Qin Jie. Although Qin Feifei said this, she knew very well that the will was real. Qin Yongchang really wrote such a will, and he really planned to give the Qin Corporation to Qin Jie. When Qin Feifei thought of this, she felt upset. Will? Jean Hausa was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect Qin Yongchang to have such a trick up his sleeve. All of it? Yes, all of it. All of the Qin Corporation's shares. They all belong to Qin Jie. When Qin Feifei said this, she sneered. And I could get all of the real estate and funds under his name. It looked like a lot, but in reality, compared to the Qin clan, it was just a small sorcerer meeting a great sorcerer. She really didn't expect her good father to be so biased. The father-daughter relationship of more than 20 years seemed to be fake now. You've checked it all? Is it true? Qin Feifei didn't answer, so it was a definite answer. She looked at Jean Hausa, and a flash of ruthlessness flashed in her eyes. Brother Hao, you know that I absolutely can't watch the Qin Corporation fall into that person's hands. John House's hand unconsciously knocked on the table, and he suddenly raised his head. Don't be anxious. The Chin Corporation is still yours. It won't be anyone else's. Brother Hao, do you have a solution? Of course. John Hauser expressed his opinion. Let's not talk about the fact that Uncle is still alive. The will only take effect when he dies. Even if there really is this will, it doesn't matter. Just ask your father to write another one. Will my father be willing? Chun Feifei sneered. He gave the company to Chun Jie. Will he be willing to write another one? No wonder, although he was unwilling at first, he still went to Canada later. So he was waiting for her here. He wants to give the company to Chun Jie, but he needs Chun Jie to be alive to spend it, right? Jean Hauser looked at Chun Feifei. Let my people take Chun Jie away and hide him for a few days. If your father really cares about him that much, he will naturally agree to write a new one. When the time comes, we can just go to the court. Won't everything be fine? Then what if my father writes another one? The legal effect of a will was based on the last will before a person died. Chen Yongchang could write another one. Then if Chun Jie was safe, he could also write another one. Jean Hauser looked at Chun Feifei and thought of Jean Cohen. It's not difficult. Let the doctor write a certificate to prove that he is insane. Then no matter how many wills he writes later, they will be invalid. What's more, I don't intend to let him write another will. Then, brother, I'll let him write the equity transfer agreement directly. Jean Hauser sneered. The Chun Corporation still belongs to your father now. Let him transfer all the property under his name to you. By then, the property will already be under your name. What's the use of his will? This move was extremely ruthless. Chun Feifei didn't expect it. She looked at Jean Hauser and suddenly smiled. Good idea. If possible, send the woman surnamed Liang to accompany my father. As for Chun Jie, let him be with them for a while. This meant that he wanted to use Chun Jie as a hostage. Jean Hauser nodded. Okay, I'll get someone to arrange it. Thank you. Brother Hao. You're welcome. I came here to look for you for something. What? Issue a statement to break off the engagement with me. Chun Feifei was stunned for a moment. The 3-month period had actually passed long ago, but Jean Hauser's name was too useful, so she had forgotten about it for a moment. TSK, I thought you'd forgotten. How could I forget such an important matter? In fact, he really forgot. He thought that it would be fine as long as they all reached an agreement. However, he didn't expect Shi Mengwan to care so much about this matter. He had no choice but to come personally to resolve this matter. Brother Hao, do you dislike me that much? You won't give me a chance at all? She was a little resentful. No matter what, she had grown up with him, but their relationship was actually so indifferent. It really made her sad. Feifei, all right. Chun Feifei shook her head. I'm so good. It's not like no one wants me. But Brother Hao, since the right to break off the engagement is in my hands, you shouldn't mind what excuse I use, right? I don't mind. This was what he had promised Chun Feifei back then. However, if Jean Hauser knew what Chun Feifei said later, it would make things difficult for him. He probably wouldn't think that way now. Shi Mengwan didn't expect that she would be able to see Jean Hauser so soon this time. She thought that after she made that request last time, it would take a long time for Jean Hauser to appear. After all, Chun Feifei seemed to like Jean Hauser so much, so how could she easily agree to break off the engagement? Therefore, after Su Qingsong's 1-month celebration for the twins, she played in Rome City for 2 more days. Under Su Qingsong's persuasion, she promised her that if Jean Hauser couldn't run away to marry her and get married, she wouldn't be with Jean Hauser. It wasn't that Su Qingsong didn't believe Jean Hauser, but she really felt that her good friend was a woman who was blinded by love. Otherwise, why would she be single for a big brother from more than 10 years ago? Shi Mengwan didn't expect that as soon as she entered the door and put down her luggage, Jean Hauser would come. Jean Hauser returned to Lin City earlier than Shi Mengwan. As soon as he came back, he went to find Chun Feifei to resolve the engagement. He didn't expect Chun Feifei to be in trouble. He used the day to arrange the arrangements and send Chun Jie away. Then, he asked someone to send Chun Jie's mother, who had come to cause trouble for Chun Feifei, to Canada to accompany Chen Yongchang. Now that the people who were watching Chen Yongchang had already obtained the transfer certificate, The next step was to take it to justice. Chun Feifei officially took control of the Chun Corporation. After he finished all these things, it seemed like a lot, but it only took him 2 days. Once he was done, he asked Chun Feifei to announce the news. Chun Feifei said that the Chun Corporation happened to have a press conference tomorrow. She would announce it at the press conference. Zhang Hao's matter had been resolved. He didn't want to delay any longer. He directly came to look for Shi Mingwan. When Shi Mingwan saw Zhang Hao at this moment, her emotions were a little complicated. Tomorrow, Chun Feifei will hold a press conference to announce the annulment of the engagement with me. Before she was about to ask Zhang Hao to leave, Zhang Hao said this in advance. Shi Mingwan was stunned. She blinked and looked at Zhang Hao in front of her. "What did you say?" I said, "Tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. Chun Feifei will hold a press conference to announce the annulment of the engagement with me." As he spoke, he took a step inside. Shi Mingwan was shocked by his words. Subconsciously, she took a step back and let him in. Zhang Hao came in and reached out to pull Shi Mingwan into his arms. He hugged her tightly, lowered his head, and searched for her lips. This time, Shi Mingwan didn't push him away. Instead, she let him kiss her. She blinked and looked at the enlarged face in front of her. For a moment, she thought that she was hallucinating, but she knew that Zhang Hao wouldn't joke about such a thing. If it was true, didn't that mean that she could be with him openly in the future? Thinking of this, Shi Mingwan's eyes actually felt a little sore and swollen. Zhang Hao kissed her very gently, from her lips to her cheeks to her earlobes, her eyelids. He kissed her bit by bit and took off her clothes bit by bit. Shi Mingwan didn't push him away. She reached out and hooked her arms around his neck. If she was more honest with herself, she would admit that she missed him too. She missed him very much, even if she pushed him away 100 times, 1,000 times. When he got close to her again, she would still think about being with him. That was the contract they had made since they were young. Tears welled up at the corners of her eyes and were kissed by him. His kiss fell on her like a feather. She closed her eyes and trembled with his movements. This night was exceptionally long, but it also seemed exceptionally short. Shi Mingwan was very tired, very tired. But even though she was so tired and had something on her mind, she still woke up early the next day. Yesterday, she didn't have much interaction with Zhang Hao. But after making love, Zhang Hao still explained a little to her. Chun Feifei had once done him a favor, and he wanted to repay her. So he agreed to some of her conditions. She wanted to ask what kind of favor it was, but Zhang Hao didn't continue. "Since you're so energetic, why don't we do it again?" The memories made her blush. When she woke up, the first thing she did was to pick up her phone. At 9:30 p.m., the Chun Corporation held a press conference as expected. Not only did Lin City TV station come to interview, but there was also a live broadcast on the internet. Chapter 704. Chun Feifei's delicate image was completely different from before. She was wearing a dark suit and delicate makeup. She looked much more capable and experienced than before. Behind her was a man and a woman who seemed to be her assistants. When Chun Feifei walked to the upper seat and sat down, a reporter wanted to ask her questions. She waved her hand and quickly grasped the home court. She only said 2 things. First, she had officially taken over the Chun Corporation from Chun Yongchang. As for Chun Yongchang, because of his health, he had already gone abroad to recuperate. No one cared about Chun Yongchang's physical condition. This was because Chun Feifei then mentioned 2 of the Chun Corporation's future plans. The audience applauded. They all knew that the new CEO couldn't be judged by his appearance. He finished talking about the company's development direction. Immediately, a reporter asked about Chun Feifei and Zhang Hao. "You've been engaged to President Zhang for a long time. When will the wedding be held?" The reporter's words made Chun Feifei chuckle. "My friend, don't ask this question next time. President Zhang and I have already broken off our engagement, so there won't be a wedding." "What?" The spotlights of the reporters below the stage were flashing nonstop, and a few reporters stood up to ask questions. "Sorry." Chun Feifei smiled and signaled for the reporters to be quiet. "My engagement with President Zhang was annulled a long time ago. For some reason, it hasn't been made public. Today is a good opportunity for me to make things clear to everyone. Next time, don't associate me with him again. Miss Chun, I heard that you and President John are childhood sweethearts. May I ask why you broke off the engagement? Sorry, it's not convenient for me to disclose. Miss Chun, may I ask if President John knows that you announced the annulment of the engagement today? Of course. Chun Feifei seemed to be in a difficult position. After all, he has been waiting for this day for a long time. Miss Chun, can you explain what you mean when you said that he has been waiting for this day for a long time? The reporter's questions came one after another. Chun Feifei avoided the important point and focused on the trivial. Because his heart belongs to someone else. Chun Feifei suddenly exclaimed, Sorry. He was wrong. Actually, it's because we don't get along. Although we've been childhood sweethearts for so many years, we're only siblings. Please don't misunderstand and don't overthink it. After saying this, Chun Feifei left the press conference under the protection of security. However, her last two sentences were obviously a blatant lie. The reporters had caught a big scoop. Shi Mingwan didn't see the second half of the press conference. She only saw Zhang Haoze return when Chun Feifei said, I'm sorry, President John and I have already broken off our engagement. She heard it. Zhang Haoze naturally heard it too. Shi Mingwan put down her phone and looked at Zhang Haoze. Suddenly, she felt a little unreal. Did they really break off the engagement? So simple. Was it that easy? What she had imagined and thought was very difficult was solved so easily. She blinked her eyes and stared blankly at Zhang Haoze approaching the bed. He sat down in front of her, looked at her dazed expression, and reached out to caress her cheek. Do you believe me now? Shi Mingwan bit her lip. She didn't know what she could say. How did you do it? Doesn't Chun Feifei love him very much? How would he be willing to break off the engagement? I did her a favor. Zhang Haoze reached out and pulled her into his arms. He lowered his head and gently kissed the top of her hair. Shi Mingwan let him kiss her and felt her heart beating a little fast. She wanted to cry, but she also wanted to laugh. Was the matter resolved just like that? Wan. Zhang Haoze straightened her shoulder and looked at her slightly red eyes. Now, can you promise to be my girlfriend? His eyes and brows were gentle. The face in front of her overlapped with the youth from back then. Shi Mingwan couldn't resist this face, nor could she resist his gentleness. She nodded heavily and threw herself into his arms. Shi Mingwan brought the dishes to the dining table, and Zhang Haoze set up the bowls. When the two of them looked at each other, there was a faint smile in each other's eyes. When they sat down, Shi Mingwan took the soup that Zhang Haoze scooped for her. At this moment, she thought that she had returned to the time when they were in the small bungalow. In the 2 days since Chun Feifei and Zhang Haoze announced that they were breaking off their engagement, Shi Mingwan had been with Zhang Haoze. Other than occasionally going out to deal with business, he spent most of his time with her. This made her especially satisfied. After dinner, the two of them found a movie and snuggled up on the sofa to watch it. Shi Mingwan had thought of going to the cinema with Zhang Haoze to experience the feeling of a date. However, every time she had to go out and see such a big scene, she didn't want to go out with Zhang Haoze at all. It was too exaggerated. To Zhang Haoze, this kind of movie was very boring. He would rather do something else. However, Shi Mingwan was very interested in watching it. He was so bored that he could only play with her fingers. Shi Mingwan pulled her hand back, and he went to grab it again. Her hands were well maintained, but because she had been drawing for many years, there was a thin, extremely light layer of calluses where her fingers held the pen. He felt a little heartache when he saw it. He held her hand and brought it to his lips to kiss it. This kind of interference made Shi Mingwan unable to continue watching the movie. She pulled her hand back. Stop fooling around. Zhang Haoze stopped playing with her hand and turned to wrap his arms around her waist. He watched as she took the exquisite collarbone. He lowered his head and kissed it. Shi Mingwan pushed his head again. I said stop fooling around. Just as they were about to reach the climax, the male and female leads broke up because of a misunderstanding. Zhang Haoze kissed the top of her head instead. Wan, come back to Qing City with me. Shi Mingwan was watching attentively when she suddenly heard this. She turned around and glanced at John Hauser. John Hauser, come back to Qing City with me, John Hauser said very seriously. I've been busy for the past few days. Most of the business focus has been shifted over. In the next few days, Qing City will be the main focus. Wan, I hope you can come to Qing City with me. Sherming Wan was silent. Before John Hauser broke off the engagement, she had thought about how they would continue their path if she could be with John Hauser openly one day. She had also considered what John Hauser said about going with him. For example, didn't Su Qing-sang also marry out of town? However, it was one thing to have this plan in mind, and it was another thing to actually have this day come. I need to think about it. What else do you need to think about? Sherming Wan didn't know what to say. Now that she was in Lin City, it would only take her 2 hours to return her home. But if she went to Qing City, she would be even further away from her parents. She originally wanted to bring her parents to Lin City, but they weren't willing. In 2 years, when Sherming Ru was admitted to a school in another city, her parents wouldn't even have a companion by their side. If you're worried about your parents, you can bring them to Qing City. I have a lot of businesses in Qing City. When the time comes, they can choose any place to live. My parents won't go with me. No matter how small the town was, it was still their own home. No matter how good Qing City was, it was still someone else's place. If your parents don't want to go, I can hire someone to take care of them. That's not necessary. They're in good health now. My dad is still working in the fields every day. Sherming Wan looked at John Hauser and thought of something else. Let's go back to town tomorrow to see my parents, okay? Mother sure had some misunderstandings about John Hauser, although it wasn't a misunderstanding. However, if she really wanted to go to Qing City with John Hauser, she still had to get her parents to agree. Okay, John Hauser nodded. I should visit your parents. Don't worry, I'll do my best. I'm afraid it won't be easy for my mother. Sherming Wan didn't mind reminding him. Don't forget, you have a criminal record. John Hauser also thought of it. He picked up Sherming Wan's body and hugged her in his arms. Criminal record? Is it that serious? Isn't it? Sherming Wan raised an eyebrow. You have a fiancé. She reached out and tapped John Hauser's chest. Thinking about it this way, I'm really at a disadvantage. Perhaps I should get a fiancé too. Wan. John Hauser didn't like such a suggestion. This joke isn't funny. I think it's pretty good. Sherming Wan looked serious. After all, I haven't seen many other men, so she couldn't say the rest. John Hauser would allow anything else, but to let Sherming Wan see other men? Dream on. Sherming Wan was just casually saying it. How could she really go see other men? Now that John Hauser kissed her until she couldn't breathe, she wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him instead. This kiss slowly changed its flavor. Sherming Wan was right. In Sherming Wan's heart, John Hauser was a man with a criminal record. It was obvious from the fact that she kept arranging blind dates for her daughter. To Sherming Wan, the son-in-law she wanted to find for her daughter didn't need to be rich or capable. There was only one requirement: to be good to her daughter and make her happy. John Hauser, who had a fiancé before, was obviously not within her consideration. Therefore, when she saw John Hauser follow Sherming Wan into the door with his hands full of gifts, not only was there no smile on his face, but he was also very gloomy. Wan. Sherming Wan and John Hauser stayed together in Lin City for a few days. It wasn't until John Hauser received a call that he was going back to Qing City. There were a lot of things waiting for John Hauser to deal with in Qing City, but he stayed with her in Sherming Wan's small apartment in Lin City. Tang Hua and Zhang Yang didn't say it out loud, but they were already complaining in their hearts. One had to know that although the Zhang family was suppressed to the point that they couldn't raise their heads, Zhang Lai wasn't dead yet. Zhang Lai's wife, Bai Shuqiao, also had a good family background. Now that the two of them and their 2 sons were locked up under surveillance, how could the Bai family be willing to accept this? They had come to their door a few times, although they were all blocked. However, the Bai family had roughly guessed something and had been up to a lot of small tricks recently. Those small tricks couldn't stop John Hauser, but they still had to wait for John Hauser to return to Qing City before they dealt with Zhang Lai and Bai Shuqiao. John Hauser didn't tell Sherming Wan about these things. He only told Shermeng Wan before he went to bed last night that if possible, he wanted to visit the Sher family's parents as soon as possible. Shermeng Wan didn't hesitate. Since she had already decided to be with Zhang Haoze, then it was a very necessary step to bring Zhang Haoze to meet his parents. Shermeng Wan also knew that Zhang Haoze had a fiancé that wouldn't be over so quickly with Mother Sher. Therefore, she was already mentally prepared when she came all the way here. Afraid that she would scare Mother Sher, Shermeng Wan resolutely didn't allow Zhang Haoze to bring his convoy to town. So now there were only the two of them. Hearing Mother Sher call her, she touched Zhang Haoze's arm. Before they came, they had agreed that Zhang Haoze would perform today, including how to explain it to Mother Sher. It was all his business. "Hello, Annie." Zhang Haoze handed over the gifts in his hands. The smile on his face was a little fawning. "These are gifts for Annie and Uncle. I don't want them." Mother Sher didn't even look at them. She even took a step back. "I can't accept Mr. Zhang's gift." Zhang Haoze held the bags in both hands. He didn't feel awkward standing there. "How can Annie not accept it? I'm with Wan Wan, so you're my elder. There's nothing I can't accept." "Stop." Mother Sher's expression changed when she heard his words. "What did you say? You're with Wan Wan?" Even though she was already mentally prepared when she saw them appear together, Mother Sher's expression still changed when she heard this. "Yes," Zhang Haoze openly admitted. "Wan Wan and I had a misunderstanding before. Now that the misunderstanding has been resolved, we're back together." "Misunderstanding?" Mother Sher sneered and remained unmoved. "Is having a fiancé also a misunderstanding?" Zhang Haoze was a little embarrassed. This wasn't a misunderstanding. "Auntie, I've already resolved this matter." "Resolved? How?" Mother Sher's attitude seemed to be good. Zhang Haoze gained some courage. "I've already broken off the engagement." Shermeng Wan nodded at the side, as if to prove it to Zhang Haoze. Unfortunately, Mother Sher wasn't moved at all. "Really? When did it end?" "Last week." Mother Sher didn't say anything. Zhang Haoze just stood in the yard with the gifts in his hands. Shermeng Wan was afraid that he would get tired after carrying it for a long time, so she gave him a look and told him to put it down. Zhang Haoze shook his head at her gently. Mother Sher didn't miss their small movements at all. She looked at Shermeng Wan and suddenly spoke. "Wan Wan, President Zhang said that he broke off the engagement? Is this true?" "Yes." "Then how do you know that he really broke it off? What if he's lying to your face and deceiving you?" "Mom." Shermeng Wan felt that Mother Sher had really watched too much TV. "How is that possible? He held a press conference and appeared on TV about breaking off the engagement." "Really?" "Of course." Shermeng Wan quickly nodded. "Mom, don't worry. His engagement is really broken off." Mother Sher wanted to say something else, but Zhang Haoze handed the gift in his hand forward at the right time. "Auntie, believe me, I'm really single now. I don't have an engagement, and I don't have a girlfriend. I'm also serious about Meng Wan." With her guarantee, Mother Sher felt that something was wrong, but she couldn't remember what it was. In the end, she didn't hit a smiling person. She waved her hand and called Zhang Haoze into the house. The few of them had been standing in the yard talking just now. Fortunately, it was busy farming now, so there weren't many people. Otherwise, people might gossip if they saw them. Shermeng Wan blinked at Zhang Haoze. This meant that she had passed. Zhang Haoze smiled, and the two of them entered the door. Mother Sher looked at the time. "Your dad has gone to the fields and will be back soon for dinner. You guys sit for a while. I'll go buy some vegetables." "Mom, I'll go with you." "No need." Mother Sher tapped Shermeng Wan's forehead. "If you want to come back next time, let me know in advance." Since her son-in-law came to visit, she had to entertain him well. Even this child didn't say a word. "Mom, we're all family. There's no need to stand on ceremony with him." Mother Sher's reaction was to glare at her, then turn around and go out. Shermeng Wan looked at Zhang Haoze and suddenly smiled. It was as if she didn't expect to pass so easily. Zhang Haoze was a little worried just now, but now he relaxed. Look, nothing happened at all. On the way here, Shermeng Wan had been very worried. Along the way, she thought about what he would do if Mother Sher made things difficult for him. "I'm fine because my mother loves me." Shermeng Wan's face was full of pride. "Do you think it's because of you?" My mother loves me, so she won't make things difficult for you. Yes. It was rare that Jean Hausa didn't argue with Shi Mengwan. Your mother loves you. She also loves her son-in-law. Go away. Shi Mengwan hit him. Whose son-in-law are you? Don't randomly call me relatives. If I'm not your son-in-law, why did you bring me here? While the two of them were laughing, Father Shi returned. He suddenly saw that there was a man at home, and he was even holding hands with his daughter and standing together very intimately. His expression didn't look good for a moment. Wan, Dad. Shi Mengwan quickly retracted her hand and took 2 steps forward. You're back? Yes. Father Shi nodded. Yes, I'm back. His trousers were still stained with mud from working in the field, and his face was a little black and red from the sun. At this moment, his gaze sized up Jean Hausa. Hello, Uncle. My name is Jean Hausa. I'm Wan's boyfriend. Jean Hausa went forward and introduced himself. It was his first time meeting his father-in-law, so he was under a lot of pressure. However, he was used to being cold. Even if he was nervous, it couldn't be seen on his face at all. Instead, he looked very calm and collected. Father Shi didn't look at him. Instead, he looked at Shi Mengwan. Wan, when did this happen? Why haven't I heard of it at all? You didn't object when your mother said that she wanted to arrange a blind date for you, right? At that time, didn't you have a boyfriend? Dad, he's indeed my boyfriend. Jean Hausa took another step forward and introduced himself again. At the same time, he reached out to shake Father Shi's hand. How long have you known each other? Father Shi didn't even look at that hand and only looked at Shi Mengwan. We've known each other for a long time. Shi Mengwan's words made Father Shi raise his eyebrows again. Known each other for a long time? Then why are you still going on a blind date? Shi Mengwan didn't expect Father Shi to catch the main point with one sentence. She chuckled. Although we've known each other for a long time, we've only been together recently. That's why we're going on a blind date. Is that so? Father Shi didn't say anything and just stared at Jean Hausa. His looks were not bad, and he looked like a decent person. Even if Father Shi hadn't seen the world before, he knew that the suit wasn't cheap. Logically speaking, he should be happy to have such a son-in-law. But Father Shi couldn't be happy. He looked at his daughter, who was as beautiful as a flower. No matter how he looked at it, Jean Hausa looked like a pig who came to steal his cabbage. He was inexplicably unhappy. Hence, he chose to ignore Jean Hausa's extended hand. This atmosphere was really a little awkward. However, Jean Hausa's heart was unusually strong. If Father Shi didn't shake hands with him, he would calmly retract his hand. As for Shi Mengwan's gaze, he even patted the back of her hand in a place where Father Shi couldn't see. The two of them exchanged flirtatious glances didn't escape Father Shi's eyes. He looked at Jean Hausa even more differently. At this moment, no matter what Shi Mengwan said, he didn't say anything. He just stood there and stared at Jean Hausa. When he saw Shi Mengwan smiling sweetly at him, he suddenly had the urge to hit someone. Very soon, Mother Shi returned. She went into the kitchen and asked Father Shi to take a shower before coming out. No matter what, it was Jean Hausa's first time visiting. It was really inappropriate for him to stand next to his future son-in-law in such a muddy state. Father Shi felt the disdain in Mother Shi's mouth, and his mood was a little complicated. When he looked at Jean Hausa again, he was even more displeased. However, he had to listen to his wife's words. Father Shi obediently went to take a shower. Thus, one went into the kitchen, and the other went back to the room. Only Jean Hausa and Shi Mengwan were left in the living room. I'm sorry. My dad has never seen you before. Shi Mengwan didn't even believe what she said. She didn't know why her father had such great hostility when he saw Jean Hausa for the first time. It's okay. I understand. Jean Hausa nodded. If we have a daughter in the future and another man wants to marry her, I won't be happy either. Being unhappy was light. It was even possible for him to fight with him. TSK, who wants to have a daughter with you? Shi Mengwan smiled and patted him. In just a short while, Shi Mengru returned. Compared to Father Shi and Mother Shi, Shi Mengru was the only one who had a good expression towards Jean Hausa. Brother-in-law? Can I call you brother-in-law? Shi Mengru's words caused Father Shi and Mother Shi to object at the same time. No, but isn't he sister's boyfriend? He's not married. So why are you calling him brother-in-law? Father sure glared at his little daughter, who was siding with an outsider. Call him Mr. Jean. Mengru, right? You can call me Brother Jean. Jean Hausa smiled and tried to smooth things over. He was handsome, and he looked imposing. Sure, Mengru was 13 years old, the age of naughtiness. Okay, Brother Jean. She didn't know how to be polite at all. You're so handsome. What do you do? I start a small company. Jean Hausa said it very modestly. The corners of Shi Mengwan's mouth twitched. XM was also called a small company? Hee. Really? What company? XM. Jean Hausa answered casually. Shi Mengru nodded. However, a few seconds later, she suddenly exclaimed. She took out her phone and swiped it a few times. Finally, she looked up at Jean Hausa with a shocked expression. Chapter 705. As soon as he said this, the other three people present all looked at Jean Hausa. Especially Mother Shi and Father Shi's gazes changed. Mengru, what are you talking about? Shi Mengwan looked at her sister. Even if Jean Hausa had a fiancée, he didn't say that. Shi Mengru pouted and turned the phone to face her parents. I didn't say anything wrong. It was written on the news. Shi Mengwan wouldn't have known about this. However, their classmates were playing a game that was produced by XM Company. One had to know that XM Company's games were very popular. Fire one after another. The Universe player that recently came out had a lot of students in their school playing it. Although Shi Mengru didn't play games, her classmates were playing them. She had only played it a few times. After that, she felt that it was a waste of time and stopped playing. However, on the day that she uninstalled the game, she happened to see the news. Although Jean Hausa and Chen Feifei weren't celebrities, XM's achievements were too eye-catching. Especially the Universe player game, which had been ranked first in the download rankings for months in a row. Hence, players would naturally pay attention to it. For ordinary players, even if they knew that Jean Hausa abandoned his fiancée because he had a mistress, so what? It was fine as long as the game was fun. Because of this, Shi Mengru often argued with her classmates. She felt that she didn't want to use a product developed by a company with a bad character. There was nothing she could do. The children raised by Father Shi and Mother Shi were so stubborn. Therefore, when she heard the familiar name of Jean Hausa and thought of XM, she immediately took out her phone to look for news. This matter was a little too big. One had to know that unlike Tianyu Group and the Corporation, which operated in traditional industries, XM mainly focused on gaming and was very well known among young people. Jean Hausa used to be very mysterious, but ever since he got engaged to Chen Feifei, he was considered a celebrity in Lin City because of his handsome looks. However, the way Shi Mengru looked at Jean Hausa now was not very appreciative. Although she was young, she had a strong sense of right and wrong. She was afraid that Mother Shi wouldn't be able to see it clearly, so she specially enlarged the phone for her parents to see. Dad, Mom, look. It's not me, it's the news. It had been less than a week since Jean Hausa and Chen Feifei broke off the engagement. It was still considered a hot news. He searched online and found a bunch of reports. Of course, many of these reports were not true, but no one cared if it was real or not. That day, Chen Feifei wanted to say it, but she was too shy. Her half-hearted attitude showed that she had explained it clearly. In fact, it made all the reporters in Lin City imagine a drama. Every media outlet even wrote different content. Yet, there were people who believed it. For example, the news on a certain website was, Jean Hausa likes the new and dislikes the old, abandons his childhood sweetheart. Only Qing Mei was left to support the Chen Corporation. For example, a well-known magazine wrote, why did XM abandon its childhood sweetheart? Little San's identity was mysterious, and his background was a mystery. But one thing was for sure, and that was that she was definitely more powerful than Chen Feifei. There were also other kinds of news. That was about it. These few days, Shi Mengwan and Jean Hausa only cared about being together. As for this news, because Jean Hausa had promised Chen Feifei that she could say whatever she wanted, Tang Hua and the others knew about it. but no one came to tell Zhang Haoze. More importantly, Tang Hua and the others didn't take this matter seriously. Compared to the Zhang family's matter, a small piece of news would naturally be suppressed in 2 days. Therefore, not only did Shi Mengwan not know, but Zhang Haoze also didn't know that he had become a news figure. While Shi Mengru was speaking, Shi Mengwan also picked up her phone and flipped through the news. With this, her expression became a little subtle. The moment she finished reading the news, Father Shi and Mother Shi also finished reading it. The 4 members of the Shi family didn't say anything at this moment. Their gazes were extremely interested as they looked at Zhang Haoze. Zhang Haoze, Auntie, Uncle, this matter actually, Mr. Zhang. I'm sorry. Mother Shi spoke first. In this family, she definitely had a position. Cheetah isn't a match. Our Wanwan isn't a match for Mr. Zhang. So, Mr. Zhang, please. There is no way for villagers to chase people away in the middle of a meal. This was too humiliating. But Mother Shi actually did such a rude thing. That's right. Father Shi glared at Zhang Haoze coldly. He was already dissatisfied with the man who was going to marry his daughter, and now he was even more dissatisfied. Mr. Zhang, if you're not confused, please. Shi Mengru blinked and suddenly stopped talking. Shi Mengwan looked at her family and finally looked at Zhang Haoze. I'm a mistress? Because of his relationship with a mistress, he broke off the engagement with Chun Feifei? That's what the news meant, right? Wanwan, you know you're not. I don't know. Shi Mengwan only hated herself for not seeing this news earlier. If she had seen it earlier, she definitely wouldn't have brought Zhang Haoze back. I only found out now. Wanwan, Chun Feifei announced that she broke off the engagement. You know about it, right? Yes. Zhang Haoze couldn't deny it. He did know about it. She said that you broke off the engagement with her because you had a third party. You know about it too, right? I didn't know. Zhang Haoze shook his head. I just said that she could find any excuse she wanted. However, Zhang Haoze didn't expect Chun Feifei to find such an excuse. Zhang Haoze met the gazes of the 2 elders of the Shi family and felt a little awkward. But the most important thing right now was Shi Mengwan. He absolutely had no intention of making her a mistress. Wanwan. Shi Mengwan turned around and didn't listen to Zhang Haoze's explanation. She looked at Father Shi and Mother Shi. Dad, Mom, this isn't what you think. The press conference and Chun Feifei saying that she was a mistress could be explained slowly. But now, she needed her parents' support. Wanwan. Mother Shi didn't expect Shi Mengwan to still speak up for Zhang Haoze at this time. Father Shi's face turned green. All right, stop talking. I won't agree to you guys being together. Mr. Zhang, you should leave. Dad, Shi Mengwan wanted to say something, but Father Shi raised his hand and didn't listen to her at all. Don't call me. I'll say it again. I won't agree to you guys being together. Let him go. This isn't Haoze's fault. Shi Mengwan stood up. She didn't believe that her parents would be so unreasonable. Besides, I know about this. You know. Father Shi stood up and looked at her angrily. What do you know? What do you know? Huh? It's a fact that this man has a fiancée, right? Did you get together with him when he had a fiancée? Is that right? Tell me. Dad, it's not what you think. Then what is it? Father Shi had been straightforward all his life. Although he and Mother Shi couldn't be said to be rich, they were quite strict in educating their daughter, especially after Shi Mengwan ran away from home for more than a year. After she came back, Father Shi and Mother Shi's concept of parenting changed. Let me ask you, did he get together with you when he had a fiancée? Shi Mengwan was speechless. Zhang Haoze stood up as well. Uncle, this isn't Wanwan's fault. It's my fault. I didn't deal with my own problems in time. You can't blame Wanwan for this. Of course it's your fault. Father Shi said bluntly. But you're no one to me. I don't want to see you now. I'm just educating my daughter. You, he pointed at Shi Mengwan. If you still recognize me as your father, then break up with this. Dad, Shi Mengwan was speechless. She had waited so long for Zhang Haoze to break off the engagement. She could be with him openly and honestly. The process wasn't very smooth, and it wasn't beautiful either. But wasn't it fine as long as the result was good? Uncle, don't call me that. I can't afford it. Father Shi's temper flared up. He pointed in the direction of the door. Leave. Don't force me to make a move. Jean Hausa stood there with an extremely awkward expression on his face. Other than the Jean family, it had been a long time since anyone had given him a hard time. Uncle, Wan and I truly love each other. You truly love each other? Since you and Wan truly love each other, why are you engaged to another woman? Dad, when had Wan ever seen Jean Hausa like this? She couldn't help but want to say a few words for him. Hausa and Chun Feifei got engaged because they— Shut up. I'll settle your problem with you later. Father sure only stared at Jean Hausa. Now get out of my house. Dad, if you talk again, I'll chase you out too. Father Sure's words made Wan not dare to speak again. She stood there, not planning to let it go just like that. She still wanted to say more. Jean Hausa saw that she wanted to argue with Father Sure. He reached out and patted her shoulder, then glanced at her. He signaled for her to stop talking. Uncle, Auntie, it doesn't matter if you don't want to see me now. I can leave first, but there's one thing I want you to understand. I'm sincere about Wan. Without saying anything more, Jean Hausa actually left just like that. Wan's toes moved, and she almost chased after him again. This action made Father Sure's expression even uglier. Sister, Ru hadn't said anything. Seeing that things had developed to this point, she quickly tugged at Wan's sleeve. Her parents were angry now, so it was better for her not to make them angry. Mother Sure couldn't bear it. She wanted to say something, but seeing her daughter like this, she didn't say anything in the end. Father Sure looked at Wan, who was still standing there motionlessly, and slammed the table hard. Why are you still standing? You don't want to eat anymore, do you? Wan knew that her father was angry, so she didn't plan to go against him. She obediently sat down. In rural houses, meals were eaten in the living room. Wan and Jean Hausa were sitting with their backs facing the door. When she stood up, her view of the outside was also blocked. The moment she sat down, Ru saw that Jean Hausa hadn't left yet. She quickly blinked at her sister. Wan was about to turn around when Father Sure slammed the table again. You can't even eat in peace, right? Wan didn't turn around. She had roughly guessed it. Mother Sure also saw it, but she didn't say anything. Father Sure didn't like Jean Hausa now. Seeing that he didn't leave, he shouted outside. Don't try to hurt yourself. It's useless for you to stand there. Leave my house. You're not welcome in our house. Jean Hausa stood there, but he had no intention of leaving at all. Father Sure almost couldn't help but get up and chase Jean Hausa out of the courtyard. Mother Sure tugged at his sleeve, so he had no choice but to sit back down. Wan heaved a sigh of relief, but she didn't turn around to look. This place was close to Lin City, but it was south of Lin City. It was noon. Although it wasn't midsummer yet, the sun was very hot. Jean Hausa just stood under the sun, showing no signs of leaving. Wan didn't have much of an appetite. She casually ate 2 mouthfuls of rice, but in the end, she still turned around to look at Jean Hausa. As if sensing her gaze, Jean Hausa also looked at her and even smiled at her. Father Sure slammed the table again. Wan could only look away and lower her head to focus on eating. The child's father, although it was noon, there weren't many people passing by. But in the countryside, it wasn't popular to close the door during the day when there were people at home. Jean Hausa just stood in their courtyard like a thorn. If someone saw him, you don't want to eat in peace either, do you? It was rare for Father Sure to speak to his wife in a bad tone. Thus, no one in the family spoke. After eating, Ru took the initiative to stand up and clean up the dishes. She winked at Wan and quickly ran into the kitchen. Dad, Mom. Wan didn't turn around to look outside. She only looked at her parents. Jean Hausa isn't what you think. Me and him aren't what you think either. Father Sure didn't want to hear it. He wanted to chase Jean Hausa out now. Out of sight, out of mind. He stood up and was about to walk out when Wan called out. Dad, Jean Hausa is dear brother. Father Sure's footsteps stopped there, and Mother Sure suddenly turned around to look at Wan. Dad, Mom, Jean Hausa is that dear brother from back then. Father Sure and Mother Sure both knew about dear brother. Back then, when Wan found him, She had nightmares for a long time at night. In her dreams, she kept calling him dear brother, dear brother. For a period of time, Father sure thought that she had a mental problem and wanted to take her to see a psychiatrist. However, they didn't know when Meng stopped dreaming and stopped shouting at night. They thought that this matter was over. Father Sure even thought that the so-called dear brother was a character that Meng had imagined herself. Otherwise, how could there be no news at all? However, Mother Sure didn't think that this matter was fake. When she heard her daughter mention this name back then, she knew that her daughter hadn't forgotten Jean Hausa. Jean Hausa is dear brother, Meng added. She had never told her parents about what happened that year. She only briefly mentioned that she was saved by a dear brother and lived together for a year. However, there were many details and many interactions between the two of them that were the most precious and precious memories to her. She didn't want to tell anyone, not even her parents. If there's a first come, first served rule in a relationship, I'm not the third party. Meng recounted what happened back then in a very low voice. After she finished speaking, she talked about the nightmare that completely separated her from her dear brother. Dear brother offended some people back then, so we met some bad people. When you found me, dear brother was gone. Actually, he was saved by Chun Fei, the young lady of the Chun family, his former fiancée. Jean Hausa didn't tell Meng about this part. She deduced it. The Chun family saved dear brother's life. He was a person who knew how to repay kindness, especially Chun Fei, who was in poor health and had heart disease. So when their family wanted the two of them to be together, dear brother agreed. But then we met again. Of course, Meng wouldn't say that she never gave up and that she was the one who took the initiative to find Jean Hausa. Because dear brother owed the Chun family a favor, he agreed to let the woman propose to break off the engagement. I can probably understand why Chun Fei thinks that way. After all, she needs a good reputation. These were also Meng Wan's speculations, but these were already close to the truth. Chun Fei is a woman. She insists on saying this now. Don't tell me you want dear brother to confront her and refute her. She believed that even if Jean Hausa knew, he wouldn't do it. Firstly, the Chun family had done him a favor. Secondly, Jean Hausa looked cold, but he was definitely not stingy towards people who had no conflict of interest with him. At this point, Meng looked up at her parents. That's how it is. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. I've never been a third party, and I believe that no one will mention this matter again after a while. People were forgetful. They weren't celebrities. More importantly, she was about to go to Qing City with Jean Hausa. Under such circumstances, how could she care about those rumors? Father Sure and Mother Sure were silent. After hearing Meng Wan's words, the two of them looked at each other. Now, they looked at Meng together. You said that Jean Hausa was the young man who saved you back then? Mother Sure's gaze changed a little. Her thinking was different from that of man. To her, whoever saved her daughter was her savior. Yes, Meng nodded. Dad, didn't you tell me that I have to repay kindness? Dear brother saved me, so he's my savior. Now that you've chased my savior out, you don't usually teach us like this, do you? Father Sure was stunned by Meng and almost couldn't speak, but it was only for a moment. Don't go so far. Father Sure sneered. You said that he saved you? Then do you know how many injuries you had when we brought you back from the police? Do these injuries count as because of him? Meng was speechless. Father Sure continued. Yes, he saved you, but you just said that when you lived together, you cleaned, cooked, and washed for him. Does that count as you also helping him? Meng was speechless. Her lips moved, and she wanted to say something, but Father Sure spoke again. All right, even if it was in the past, you said that he saved you, but you took care of his life. Is this considered even? You said that he also took care of you. He arranged a school for you and took care of you. Then it's also a fact that you were almost killed because of him, right? Does this count as a clean slate? But how could matters of the heart be calculated in such a way? The past matters are even. I'll talk about what happened after you two reunited. After you two reunited, he was still with that Miss Chun, right? That's because I don't care about the reason. I'm just asking you, is that right? When you two were together, was he still related to that Miss Chun? Sherman-Wan's mouth opened and closed again. When she met Father Sher's eyes, she couldn't give a negative answer. Let's take a step back. All right, even if he wants to repay the favor, it's his business. It's his business to repay the debt of gratitude. What does it have to do with you? He dragged you down and made you bear the accusation of being a third party. Is that because of him? Are you going to suffer criticism because of him? We can, just tell me, isn't it? Sherman-Wan couldn't refute. Father Sher sneered. That's why you're saying so much now. You want me to agree to you two being together. Let me tell you, it's impossible. As long as he was around, it was absolutely impossible. He would never agree to Jean Hausa being together with Sherman-Wan. But Dad, I really like him. You really like him and really want to be with him. And then? Father Sher's gaze was sharp. Haven't you thought about what you'll face after you two really get together? He knocked on the table, and his voice was much colder than before. Others won't care about his difficulties and won't think about what happened to him. Others will only know that he once had an engagement, but it was broken off. And the reason it was broken off was because of you. No, and you have to bear the reputation of being a third party to be with him. Do you think that this matter will fade away after a long time? You're completely wrong. Actually, Father Sher didn't believe that Sherman-Wan hadn't thought of these things. But even if she had thought of them, she probably wouldn't care. Because in Father Sher's opinion, she had already been blinded by her emotions. Let me tell you, if you really want to be with him, these things won't pass. Do you know? Sherman-Wan sat there without moving. Of course she knew, but she really didn't care that much. After waiting for more than 10 years, she had been angry and desperate. Compared to that time, the disappointment now was much lighter. She could finally be with her dear brother. She was more grateful. Moreover, she didn't think that this matter couldn't be changed. In short, I won't agree. As he spoke, Father Sher stood up and walked outside. He glared at Jean Hausa, who was still standing in the courtyard. Mr. Jean, our house is small and can't accommodate a great Buddha like you. Mr. Jean, please move. Uncle, I said, don't call me uncle. I can't afford it. Please. As he spoke, he directly pushed Jean Hausa. Jean Hausa's skills were excellent, so he usually wouldn't be pushed out by Father Sher. Chapter 706. As soon as he turned around, he met Sherman-Wan's gaze, and his face darkened. If you still recognize me as your father, I won't allow you to be with him. Dad, Sherman-Wan was about to faint. She couldn't help but turn to look at Mother Sher. Mom, look at Dad. She had wanted to stop Father Sher from chasing her away, but she didn't expect that she was still a beat too slow. She took a few steps forward and was about to open the door for Jean Hausa. Father Sher stood at the door. He blocked the door and didn't give in at all. Don't open the door. Dad. Sherman-Wan was anxious. Seeing that the father and daughter were about to clash, Mother Sher quickly went forward to pull them apart. She said she was pulling them apart, but she was only trying to dissuade her daughter. Wan, you must be tired from the car ride all morning. You should go and rest first. Mother Sher winked at Sherman-Wan. Father Sher was in a fit of anger, so it was better not to face Father Sher head-on. But before Sherman-Wan could finish speaking, she saw Father Sher snort and stand still facing the door. His attitude showed that he had no intention of stepping aside. Dad, Mom, Sherman-Wan had a headache. I still have to go back to Lin City to work. You guys aren't planning to lock me at home and not let me go out, are you? The studio is all your own. Take a few days off and treat it as staying at home with your mother and me. Father Sher looked at Sherman-Wan. Besides, don't think that I don't know that you can still work online. There are computers and Wi-Fi at home. You can just stay at home for the next few days. Dad, how can you do this? I'm already an adult. How can you restrict my personal freedom? I'm not trying to restrict you. I'm doing this for your own good. If you really recognize me as your father, then agree to break up with that John guy. As long as you break up, I'll naturally let you go back. Dad, can you be more reasonable? Sherman-Wan didn't expect that after saying so much, she couldn't move Father Sher at all. She really didn't know what to do. I'm unreasonable? Let me tell you, I'm doing this for your own good. That Shen woman's family background is better than ours, right? That John guy doesn't even like her. Do you think he can be loyal to you for the rest of his life? I believe him. Unfortunately, I don't believe it. Father Sure had the same opinion as Mother Sure in this regard. Since ancient times, it was only right for families of equal status to be matched. If the surname Jean could earn so much money, and his conditions were so good, they were really not a good match. Dad, you haven't even interacted with him before, yet you're saying this. Aren't you being too arbitrary? Arbitrary? I'm being arbitrary and doing it for your own good. Father Sure's attitude was firm. Shi Mengwan was very helpless. After Shi Mengru washed the dishes and was about to go to school, Father Sure was still blocking the door and not letting Shi Mengwan go out. Shi Mengru stepped forward and looked at Father Sure with a fawning expression. Dad, it's fine if you block sister. I still have to go to school. Father Sure glanced at his little daughter and opened the door to let her go. Zhan Haoze was still standing outside the door. When Shi Mengwan saw him, she moved her toes. However, before she could take a step out, Father Sure slammed the door shut again. He turned around and glared at Shi Mengwan. Don't even think about getting out today. I said it. Dad, Shi Mengwan really didn't know that her biological father had such a stubborn side. The sun in the courtyard was also very strong. Shi Mengwan's courtyard door was the kind of iron gate that could often be seen in the countryside. There was nothing to block it. The sun was so strong. Although Zhan Haoze was a man, he wasn't afraid of the sun. However, Shi Mengwan's heart ached for him to stand outside the courtyard like this. Dad, just let him in. If there's anything, can't we just let him in and talk about it? He's just standing outside like this. Are you afraid that the neighbors will gossip when they see him? Gossip about what? Father Sure was stubborn. If he's afraid of being gossiped about, he can leave. If he doesn't stand there, won't no one gossip about him? Shi Mengwan felt a headache coming on. She looked at Father Sure and finally nodded. All right, let him stand. She turned around and walked into the house. Such an easy compromise stunned Father Sure for a moment, but he immediately became even more annoyed. He turned around and looked at Mother Sure. What is she doing? Throwing a tantrum at me? Losing her temper? What nonsense are you talking about? Mother Sure watched the father and daughter fight and was a little helpless. You're blocking her sweetheart outside, but you're not allowing her to have a little temper? She can't bear to see her sweetheart suffer, so she can let me, her father, suffer, right? Father Sure's words stunned Mother Sure for a moment, but she immediately reacted. She laughed. She was afraid that Zhan Haoze, who was outside, would hear her, so her voice was very soft. Are you jealous? Father Sure's old face turned red. Who's jealous? Why isn't it jealousy? Mother Sure's smile became even brighter. She touched Father Sure's arm. You're unhappy that your daughter is about to run away with another man. Not to mention that your daughter is still thinking about protecting her sweetheart. She doesn't give you any face at all. What nonsense are you talking about? Father Sure was a little embarrassed. He glared at Mother Sure. Anyway, I don't like such a man. I don't agree. After saying this, he also entered the house. When he entered the house, he found that Shi Mengwan had actually returned to her room and ignored him. She didn't even think of saying anything nice. His face darkened. Shi Mengwan was in her room and looked at Zhan Haoze downstairs from the window. Unfortunately, his body was blocked by the door, so she couldn't see it. After thinking for a moment, she took out her phone and sent him a message. The sun is shining. Go back to the car and sit down first. Zhan Haoze took out his phone and smiled when he saw the message. It's okay. I can't retreat at a time like this. I have to let your father see my sincerity in wanting to marry you, right? Shi Mengwan was speechless when she saw the message he replied. Looking at the words, marry you on it, she replied, did you make a mistake? You should let me see your sincerity first, right? After all, you haven't even proposed. Then I'll propose now. Marry me. Can you? That's it? I don't want to agree. Then what do I have to do to agree? What do you think? Anyway, I don't want to marry you like this. You should rest for a while. When you wake up, maybe your father will let me in. Dream on. Shi Mengwan didn't doubt her father's determination at all. You're standing there looking at your wife. My father might agree to let you in. Then why don't we make a bet? Let's see if your father will let me in when you wake up from your nap. Let's bet. Sure Ming-Wan didn't believe him. When he replied to the message, the corners of his mouth curled up, and there was a faint smile in his eyes. If you lose, what will you do? If I lose, I'll listen to everything you say. Okay. In Sure Ming-Wan's opinion, Zhang Haoze would definitely lose. If I win, you'll marry me. Sure Ming-Wan looked at Zhang Haoze's message and was a little speechless. How could she lose? She wouldn't lose. Okay, I'm going to take a nap now. If you can really get my father to let you in, I'll marry you. It's a deal. It's a deal. After replying to the message, Sure Ming-Wan really went to sleep. At first, she couldn't fall asleep. Hearing that there was no sound outside, she thought that Zhang Haoze must still be standing outside. For some reason, she felt good. Just as she was sleeping soundly, Mother Shi's voice woke her up. Get up. For a moment, Sure Ming-Wan didn't understand where she was. She sat up and looked at Mother Shi. Mom? Yes. When you wake up, go downstairs and talk about your marriage with Zhang Haoze. Sure Ming-Wan blinked. Mom, what are you talking about? Since you're awake, go downstairs. Zhang Haoze is downstairs. Come down first. Let's see what you plan to do about your marriage. Was there something wrong with her ears? What was Mother Shi talking about? My marriage with Zhang Haoze? Could there be someone else? Mother Shi tapped her forehead. All right, hurry up. I'll ask your second and third uncles to come over for dinner tonight. It could be considered as letting Zhang Haoze meet his relatives. What kind of godly operation was this? Sure Ming-Wan couldn't understand it now. After Mother Shi went out, she quickly got up and used the shortest time to take care of herself. She changed her clothes and hurried downstairs. When she went downstairs, she realized that the atmosphere downstairs was a little strange. Other than Father Shi, Mother Shi, and Zhang Haoze, there was actually Grandma Shi. She was very surprised. How did Zhang Haoze enter the door? But before that, she had to greet Grandma Shi. Grandma, although she wasn't close to Grandma Shi, she still had to be polite. Wan, you're back? It's so hot today. Why don't you sleep a little longer? Grandma Shi seemed to be in a particularly good mood today. She saw that Sure Ming-Wan didn't give her the same attitude as before. This sudden enthusiasm made Sure Ming-Wan feel flattered for a moment. She stood there without moving. Grandma Shi had already come forward and pulled Sure Ming-Wan's hand. Wan, look at you. Why didn't you tell Grandma that you found a boyfriend? You should have brought him back a long time ago. Sure Ming-Wan's hand was held by Grandma Shi. She blinked and looked at Zhang Haoze. My grandma let you in? Your dad let me in? Impossible. It's already a light punishment for my dad not to hit you. How would he let you in? Your dad is right there. Do you want to ask him? Just like that, their gazes met in the air. In a few moments, they had already understood the meaning in each other's eyes. Sure Ming-Wan bit her lip and didn't wait for her to look at Father Shi. Grandma Shi had already pulled her hand and sat down at the side. You're here at the right time. I was just talking about how to deal with the banquet. Sure Ming-Wan realized that she couldn't keep up with her grandmother's train of thought. Why did she suddenly jump to the banquet? Sure enough, she hadn't said anything yet. Father Shi's face darkened first. Mom, who said we're going to have a banquet? Don't add to the mess. I haven't agreed to Wan's marriage yet. What did you say? Grandma Shi's expression changed instantly. She glared at Father Shi with a dissatisfied expression. What nonsense are you talking about? You don't even agree to such a good son-in-law. Tell me, what kind of son-in-law do you want? Huh? Don't tell me you still want your daughter to marry a president? Mom. Father Shi's face turned green. It's not like that. I know. He was engaged before. So what if he was engaged? Not to mention engaged. Even if he was married, wouldn't he be allowed to remarry after a divorce? Mom? Father Shi had been Grandma Shi's son for many years. How could he not know that his mother was especially good at causing trouble? He told me about Haoze on the way just now. How big of a deal is it? Isn't it just an engagement? Since it's over, it means that they're not fated. Now that he's going to be with Wan, it means that he and Wan are fated. Don't you think so? Father Shi had a headache. Look, even Haoze was called. His face was full of anger. But the other party was his mother. There were still outsiders around, so he didn't necessarily want to quarrel with Grandma Sure in front of outsiders. On the other hand, it was rare for Mother Sure to stand on the same side as her mother-in-law after so many years. Yes, it still depends on fate. Look, even your wife said that. That means that our Wan and Hausa are fated. Hausa, don't you think so? Jean Hausa nodded in agreement. Yes, I have a deep fate with Wan. That's right. Grandma Sure looked at Jean Hausa with satisfaction. All right, what's Hausa's zodiac sign? I'm a dragon. Look. Grandma Sure's eyes lit up as she looked at Father Sure. Hausa is a dragon. Our Wan is a horse. The year of the dragon and the year of the horse are a perfect match. If Sure Mengwan were to drink water now, she would definitely spit it out. She looked at Grandma Sure and realized for the first time that her grandmother was also a talent. Mom, what era is this? You still believe in this? Father Sure was even more displeased with Jean Hausa now. However, he couldn't flare up. Why don't you believe it? Look at Master Zhao at the east end of the village. He's a dragon and he's married to a tiger. They fight every day. What did that fortune teller Zhang Banxian say? He said that it's best for a dragon to marry a horse. A perfect match. They're a match made in heaven. Sure Mengwan had a hard time holding back her laughter. She couldn't help but look at John Hausa and found that he was listening to Grandma Sure's nonsense seriously. She couldn't help but rub her forehead. This was really, Hausa, don't you think so? Yes. Jean Hausa wasn't impatient at all. Instead, he agreed. I've asked a few friends who have studied metaphysics before. They also said that Wan and I are a good match. Sure Mengwan had already lowered her head and didn't want to look at Jean Hausa. How come she didn't know that Jean Hausa would actually talk nonsense with a straight face? I knew it. Since that's the case, let's settle things as soon as possible. Grandma Sure thought for a moment. This year is a good year. You know, right? There's no beginning of spring next year. It's best to get married this year. I think so, too. If possible, I hope to marry Wan as soon as possible. Child, I can tell that you're a good person at first glance. Grandma Sure smiled like a flower. Sure Mengwan really couldn't stand it anymore, but the two in front of her continued. How about this? I'll let Zhang Banxian see which day is suitable. Okay, I'll listen to Grandma. Jean Hausa nodded. Before choosing a good day, we can get engaged first. Mom, Father Sure couldn't take it anymore. I haven't agreed yet. Why won't you agree? Grandma Sure stood up and looked at Father Sure. Didn't you say that when I didn't let you marry Wan's mother in the past? Now, marriage is free and love is free. You said that times are different and you told us, as parents, not to interfere with our children's marriage? Why are you interfering with Wan's marriage now that it's in your hands? Father Sure was speechless. Wan, let me ask you, you brought Hausa back, right? Yes. Sure Mengwan had a hard time holding it in just now, but now it was even harder. You like him, and he likes you. You two are together of your own free will, right? Yes. Sure Mengwan ignored Father Sure's ugly expression and nodded vigorously. Look, Grandma Sure spread out her hands. Isn't it settled now? Marriage is free and love is free. You said it. Mom, Father Sure felt a headache coming on. All right, it's settled then. Grandma Sure made the decision on the spot. Wan, accompany Hausa around town. I'll discuss with your father and see what to do about your marriage. Also, I'll make the decision tonight. I'll ask your second uncle, third uncle, and your aunt to come over for dinner. I'll also let him recognize his relatives. Got it. Grandma. Mother Sure had said this just now, so Sure Mengwan wasn't surprised at all. She pulled John Hausa's hand and walked out. Her footsteps were a little fast. She was really afraid that if she stayed any longer, she wouldn't be able to control herself. After so long, this was the first time she realized that her grandmother had such a powerful ability. She did have some questions to ask John Hausa. Therefore, she couldn't care less about Father Sure's fierce and sharp gaze and left the house with John Hausa. She took a nap. Coincidentally, the sun outside wasn't that bright anymore. The clouds in the sky covered the sun. A gust of wind blew over. Not only was it not hot, but it was also cool. Shi Mengwan breathed in the familiar fresh air of her hometown and turned to look at Zhang Haoze. Tell me, how did you do it? Zhang Haoze didn't answer her question. He just pinched her palm. Don't worry about how I did it. Did I win today? Although he was very unwilling to admit it, he really won. Shi Mengwan nodded. Yes, you won. So, you're going to marry me? Tell me first, how did you do it? Enticement. Zhang Haoze threw out 2 words. Shi Mengwan blinked and thought of Grandma, Shi's usual personality. What benefits did you promise my grandmother? Without waiting for Zhang Haoze to answer, she suddenly raised her hand. No. Tell me first, how did you know to look for my grandmother? She didn't believe that Zhang Haoze didn't have a helper. The biggest possibility was my sister, right? She must have told you to look for my grandmother. Smart, it's your sister. Zhang Haoze smiled. He was quite satisfied with this future sister-in-law. She was the one who asked me to look for grandmother. Because Grandma Shi didn't have a good relationship with Mother Shi, and because she was angry that Father Shi refused to listen to her and adopt a stepson, she had always been taking turns staying at second uncle and third uncle's house. After Zhang Haoze received Shi Mengru's guidance, he quickly went to look for Grandma Shi. Of course, Shi Mengru brought him along. When Grandma Shi heard that he was Shi Mengwan's boyfriend, she listened to Shi Mengru's introduction. She didn't even take an afternoon nap and suddenly became energetic. She chatted with Zhang Haoze for a while. After Shi Mengru went to work, she beat around the bush and listened to Zhang Haoze's conditions. She was certain that this was a rich husband. How could she let such a good man go? It was rare for Shi Mengwan to be so lucky to meet such a good man. Grandma Shi was so happy. More importantly, Zhang Haoze generously agreed to many of Grandma Shi's conditions. What did you agree to, my grandma? Nothing much. Zhang Haoze looked at Shi Mengwan's beautiful side profile and avoided the question. If I can marry you, I don't think any conditions are a big deal. Zhang Haoze, that was because he didn't understand what kind of person Grandma Shi was. If he dared to agree to those conditions, Grandma Shi would have a way to ask for more in the future, like a bottomless pit. Don't worry. Grandma is very reasonable. It's really nothing much. Grandma Shi was reasonable? Shi Mengwan blinked and couldn't believe her ears. Zhang Haoze, what conditions did you agree to, my grandma? If you don't tell me, I won't marry you. It's really not a big deal. Zhang Haoze stopped in his tracks and pressed his forehead against Shi Mengwan's forehead. He looked at her face with a hint of gentleness in his eyes. I told you those are nothing. No matter what price he had to pay, he was lucky to be able to marry her. And after Grandma Shi received his promises, she would naturally think of a way to convince Father Shi. He didn't want to use money to bribe anyone, but if such a move was useful, he didn't mind doing it. Moreover, although Grandma Shi occasionally looked unreliable, this time, she really wasn't the one who suggested it. Zhang Haoze took the initiative to agree. He roughly knew that Shi Mengwan and Grandma Shi didn't have a good relationship, and he also knew that after so many years, there were some things in Shi Mengwan's heart that she couldn't forget. If he could get Grandma Shi to agree to their marriage with just a little money and make their relationship better, then why wouldn't he do it? Zhang Haoze's words moved Shi Mengwan a little. She looked at Zhang Haoze and suddenly tiptoed and kissed him on the lips. Thank you, Zhang Haoze. Her actions made Zhang Haoze smile. He was obviously very satisfied with her initiative. However, that's it. Your thank you gift is still so insincere. Shi Mengwan's face turned red. What else do you want? Nothing. I just wanted to remind you. Remember that you lost to me, and you have to marry me. Shi Mengwan pulled her hand back and took a big step back. I won't. I didn't even propose. I won't marry you. You won't marry me. Zhang Haoze narrowed his eyes and chased after Shi Mengwan. Shi Mengwan quickly ran away. The two of them chased each other on the road not far from the Shi family's house. They didn't stop until Shi Mengwan met an acquaintance. After Shi Mengwan took Zhang Haoze around the town and brought him home, she realized that although Father Shi's expression was still ugly, he didn't chase Zhang Haoze out anymore. He looked at Zhang Haoze with displeasure in his eyes. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and Don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.